You might remember that last year we all got together and we cast 10 votes against what we thought our 10 favourite distilleries would be. That was to do the top 10 distilleries in the vPub of early 2023. What we actually created was much, much bigger than a top 10 list. It was fantastic. It was revealing. It was very, very interesting, and it got me excited, and it made me realise that there's something more could be done with this thing. Well, in time, I've realized that that is absolutely the case, and I've reasoned with myself that there are possibilities and ways to handle it, and, it's not gonna be on this channel. So, we'll talk about it tonight. I'll let you see a wee bit more under the hood. I'll bring you up to date with all the data that we collected last year, and I'll explain exactly why I think it's good that I'm giving it away to somebody else. Looking forward to it as usual. I'll share everything with you in a second. Hello, whiskey folk. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the vPub. Welcome to another Thursday night. I hope you are all doing fantastically well. I hope you're very comfortable. I hope that some of you are in the fortunate position to be able to have something tasty and amber coloured in your glass, and hope you're able to sit back and relax a wee while, whether you're picking this up on the replay or if you're sitting with us all on this Thursday night watching live. So amazing to welcome so many of you in live. It's brilliant to have your support. It's brilliant to have your company as we chew through a topic that's getting on for about a year old since we kicked this thing off. Yeah, I haven't updated it. Nobody has been asked within my community recently to update their votes. It's already been handed over to Dramface, and Dramface have put it out to their members right now, and their members have just been testing it and making sure that there's no bumps or mistakes or errors, whatever. And that seems to have gone okay. So it'll go live this week. Why is it going live this week? Well, Dramface is 2 years old this week. It's quite incredible. There's so much been achieved in those 2 years. It's difficult. Full disclosure, I mean, I think everybody knows that I'm behind Dramface as well. It's a very, very different outlet. It's very, very different focus. It's a team effort. It's working to get together with a lot of other people. Some of them are working behind the scenes right now. On this very thing that I'm talking about tonight. It's working with over 20 active writers for Dramface. So it's a much, much bigger thing. And when we started it 2 years ago, we weren't sure if there was an appetite out there for the written word, written reviews in whiskey, whether that was well covered or whether there was space for another voice to come into that area. It's proven to be fantastic, wonderful, great fun. It's energizing. I love it. It's attracting new people as well. New readers, new writers, new contributors. It's fantastic. Sometimes when I look back on the last 2 years, it kind of feels like it's been around longer than that. Not having Dramface around, I think I would miss it, and I hope a lot of you feel the same way about it. It's not just a review site. Obviously, that's its core, but it also has news and features. And even the reviews themselves have a kind of long form content aspect to them. So you can get to know who the writers are. You can get to know, have a little bit of a letterbox view of their whiskey life, what they like, how they live, where they live, and what's open to them. And they share stories and they share context for the reviews and everything. I love Dramface. I love what we've been able to achieve there. I might even go as far to say I'm very, very proud of it, if that's not too cheeky to say. So normally on an anniversary, we would share a bunch of stats, how many visits we've received. We're over 800,000 visitors now, 1.7 million page views. It's just climbing very, very fast. But we're not going to do that this year. What we're going to do is focus on launching this top 40. And I'll explain why it's better that Dramface does that rather than Aqvavitae. But before I get into all of that, I'm going to jump in to the lounge as I always do while you're all getting settled, pulling up your bar stool, pouring your drink, whatever you're doing. and I'll welcome you in, all of you beautiful whiskey folk and dedicated barflies. Cheers. Hope you're all doing well. I'll look for the orange as I always do, so type Aqvavitae or @Aqvavitae, and I should get your, you should have a better chance of getting my attention. Bit of a confession here as I top up this wee glass. This bottle was uncorked last week on this very vPub when we covered the organic whiskies. This is the Benromach Organic. I'm down to less than a third of the bottle left now, maybe even a quarter left. This isn't me drinking all of this on my own. I've shared this out over the course of last weekend. There's samples gone out of this bottle. I just wanted to get the word out about this as much as I could. Unfortunately, it seems that the stocks were quite thin on this. They were quite thinly spread, and it seems that there's only one or two places left with any stock of this stuff. However, it's been a wonderful, wonderful bottle to explore. Very glad to have discovered it. It makes me happy that I choose to do these kind of specialist deep dives and things that force me into aspects and areas of whiskey that I might not have otherwise touched in order to discover something as tasty as this. It's a wee bit oaky. You would have to like oak flavours and whiskey to enjoy this one. But there's bags and bags of fruit, bags of malt behind that too. Lovely mouthfeel, lovely balance to things. It's one of my favourite Benromachs, honestly speaking. I hope anybody that's picked up a bottle is enjoying it too. Right, let's see how you guys are doing. I'll scroll back a wee bit to pick up some of this orange. Lee J. Brown, good to see you, Lee J. Hope you're keeping well. He's saying, hey Roy, and the barflies. Good to welcome you in, Lee J. down in, well, remind me, Wiltshire, aren't you? Of course, yeah. Jimmy Jazz in the northeast of the US. Good to see you, Jimmy. As always, relaxing with some Orchard House. So, no mood for thinking. Brilliant stuff, Jimmy. Glad you're enjoying it. A nice fruity, quite a summery dram though, right? A lot of people love their Orchard House. Bruno Martin's saying, good evening, Roy. Good to see you, Bruno, over in Portugal. And Julian Rickman is saying, evening, Roy. Aqvavitae and barflies, looking forward to another entertaining night in the vPub. I'll do my very best, Julian. I've got some good news for you on those sniper coins. More to follow. Ryan Sutherland is saying, good evening, Roy. Good evening, Ryan. There might be a wee 8 Doors quiz question later tonight. If you're still here at the end, I'm sure it's going to be a freebie for you, buddy, but it's nice to welcome you in. How are you doing? Gordon Fraser is here. Good evening, Aqvavitae. Good evening, Gordon Fraser. Wonderful to welcome you, my friend. I hope life up in the West Coast is treating you very, very well. Jerry Miller is saying, glad to finally be back live in a vPub, Roy. Thank you, Jerry. I know it's difficult and it's time zones and things. It feels like you're here all the time, honestly speaking. We miss you when you're not here, of course. We always would, but I just appreciate that when you don't, Jerry, you're picking it up on the replay. It's good to be able to welcome you in. Thank you for making the effort, despite the fact that you're 5-6 hours or perhaps a wee bit more behind us. Multi-mission in Belgium. That's Menno is saying, evening, Roy. Dram what now? Dramface, Menno. Absolutely, buddy. How are you keeping? Are you well? Jimmy Legg is saying, I know who Wally is. That's one of the things on Dramface is that all the writers, some of the writers have maybe got a legacy. They were known before they stepped into the Dramface space. Others not so much. So we all kind of spoke at the beginning about this idea of being able to write under the auspices of having a Dramface, having the freedom to just speak and just adopt a persona and build that persona and build relationships through that persona, much in the way that anybody would do if they had an Instagram account or a social media presence or whatever, and they didn't want to be their kind of regular Joe working life or whatever it was going to be. They were going to be able to be someone else. But the other idea behind Dramface is that Dramface encourages that Dramface, that persona that we bring into the whiskey space, where we just enjoy being with other whiskey folk and we don't really care where they're from, how they vote, how they pray, whatever it is. We're just happy to know each other through whiskey and see each other as people first, bringing a better version of yourself along, bringing your Dramface. So the Dramface thing has got a double meaning there, and that's why it was called as such. I'm glad you've sussed out who Wally is. A lot of people have fun trying to work out which writer is potentially which person, but I hope that they can see past that and just build a relationship, build an understanding, build an affinity with certain viewpoints and writers and things. It's been good fun. Graham Fraser is here. Good to see you, Graham. Good evening, Roy. Aqvavitae and fellow barflies. Someone asked me very, very recently which author is Graham Fraser at Dramface. So as much as I wouldn't disclose someone, I wouldn't say yes or no either. So you're going to it's up to each individual to look after their own anonymity as to their own sensibilities and how they see fit. So I just have to say, I just have to not respond. Sandro Fazzolari saying, ciao everyone, looking forward to finding out more about the upcoming info. Ciao to everyone, cheers with some Ardnamurchan. Sandro, it's always wonderful to welcome you. It's great to have you in. Gav's Drams over in Edinburgh saying, good evening, Roy. Good evening, Gav. Caught one of your, what were you reviewing recently? Caught your review of the McLean's Nose. Carl Van Wallingham is saying, good evening, Roy, and Barflies. Long time no see. Carl, it's always amazing to welcome you in here. Carl, I think we met once, didn't we? Did we meet in the vaults in Edinburgh? Could that be true? Am I recalling that correctly? Rick Johnson is saying, good evening from San Francisco, Roy, and fellow barflies. This should be fun. Rick, you're a whole 8 hours behind on the Pacific West Coast. Wonderful to welcome you. And Tim Powells. Tim, I wonder if that's the first time I've welcomed you in. He's saying, enjoyed Dramface from the start, but been very much enjoying your podcast recently. Great fun. The good news on the podcast is that season 3 is scheduled to kick off from later this month. I think we'll probably be launching into, it might make late February in terms of getting the podcast edited and out there, but it might be into early March. But there's a date locked in, and we're going to pull together the team and see if we can get the wheels back on the podcast. I miss it. We all miss it. It's great fun to do it. Justin Wan is saying, good evening, Roy and fellow barflies. Good to have you in, Justin, from Hong Kong, of course. And Jimmy Legg is saying, most of these page views are Drew and I. We are dedicated keyboard men. Between Jimmy Legg, between Drew from Arizona, between Tom O, who are dedicated to not just reading, but interacting, clicking a like and a comment, much in the same way that we would do on YouTube. And it's wonderful to have the support. Arnie Tiger is saying, hi, Roy, fun to be here. Wonderful to welcome you, Arnie. I hope you're keeping well too. And Douglas Young is saying, evening, Roy and fellow barflies. Hope you're all well. I'm doing okay. I've been struggling with a wee headache all day today, and it won't shift. Still got it a wee bit now, feeling it a wee bit. But I'm 90%. Certainly I wasn't weak enough to be postponing the vPub. It goes ahead. Carl Van Wallingham is saying, yes, we met in SMWS Vaults in Leith with the Scotch Test Dummies. Good memories. Fantastic, Carl, it was. Good to have been able to shake your hand. Ross Brereton is saying, even that would have been 2019, 5 years ago now. My goodness. Evening, Roy. Hope you're well, says Ross Brereton. Good to see you, Ross. Always wonderful to welcome you in. And Whiskey and Wine Trails, Tom O is here. Aqvavitae, podcasts, fantastic hearts. Wonderful, wonderful stuff, Tom. Great to welcome you all in. I hope you're all comfortable now and ready for some chart crunching. Let's call it that. Cheers. Don't worry, I don't have charts or graphs or anything like that, but we do have a top 40 to share with you tonight. And I want to explain to you why I'm doing this. I want to explain, we all know why I put the top 10 together in 2023. I wanted to know, is the community's top 10, does it align anywhere with my own? What is your take as a community, as a collective? What is going to be if we were to give everyone 10 votes and then collate all of those votes and see what comes out? What top 10 is it going to produce? What's it going to give us? Because what it gives us, what it will do is it betrays the truth of what we actually love, what we are drinking, and the places that we are willing to put our money. Why do I think that's important? I think it's important for a couple of reasons. And I didn't fully realize all of the positive reasons when I first did it last year, but some things became obvious when I started to get the data back. What it does, and the reason I pulled it together is that I think it's really important to help anyone coming into whiskey to say, here is your community, here is the opinions of that community, and it's yours for you to just come in and start to be active in. You can just consume like a fly on the wall type thing, or you can be much more interactive. You can contribute in things if you feel you've got something to share. You can get as involved at whatever level suits you. But I think it's important to have tools available to all of us, regardless of where we are on this journey, whether we're just coming in, whether we're fairly mature in it, or whether we're long in the tooth, or anywhere in between. There are tools available to us today that's never been available in the past. Tools to help us be very, very careful about where we spend our money in an environment that has, quite frankly, never been as complex as it is today. The top 40 distilleries focuses fully on Scotch malt distilleries in the future. Sure, we could have a list for Irish distilleries, we could have a list for American distilleries, Canadian distilleries, and on and forever. People are asking, why don't you include some English distilleries in this, Roy? Irish distilleries and things like that? Well, no, because I don't want to bring nationalism into the thing. I don't want everyone to come in from a country and vote specifically for their products. If that's important to people who are interested in Irish whiskey, English whiskey, American whiskey, Japanese whiskey, then they should probably find a way to create their own for that specific category, whether it's bourbon or whatever it may be. Maybe in the future, if this is super popular and there's a real demand for it, there's space inside Dramface to have additional top 40s, but to mix them all together, that's just a wee bit too complex. But today, even when we've focused on just Scotch malt distilleries, it is already quite dizzying. So please bear in mind, it's not about individual bottles or individual expressions. The key here is distilleries, your favorite distilleries. It's usually the liquid that'll have us creating a bond with a distillery. It's usually through the whiskey, of course it is, but it doesn't need to always be. It could be because of a wonderful visitor experience, because it's located in a place that's special to us, because of their ethos, their integrity, their model, their ethics, their philosophy, all of these things. Maybe, and today in 2024, it's got a lot to do with their pricing structure and how much they're charging for us to participate in their products. I think that's going to become more and more of an issue going forwards. Whatever your reasons are up to you. You're just given 10 votes, and you can put those votes anywhere you like over the 141. Currently, at this point, it's going to go live. Distilleries. You can put it anywhere you like. More than that, better than that. Tomorrow you change your mind. You've had a bad experience with one and you want to take your vote away and give it to another one. Or you've had a really good experience with one and you've only cast 5 of your 10 votes. You've got 5 in your back pocket. You've found another distillery and you're going to cast a vote. You can go in as many times as you like, as often as you like, at any moment, and you can update your preferences. You can keep them bang up to date. Or you might be reminded because you know that Dramface is just about to take a snapshot of the data, so you want to get yours up to date before that snapshot goes out publicly. Or you read the latest snapshot, the public snapshot, you disagree with it, and you want to immediately go in and update your vote. You can do that, and that will be obviously taken into consideration on the very next snapshot. I think it's important for the industry too, and one of the biggest things, one of the biggest negative aspects I could find in this thing was that how arrogant it is that somebody is choosing to decide what the top 10, top 25, top 40, top 50, top 100, whatever, they're choosing to rank Scottish malt distilleries. The arrogance implicit there is something to consider. But it isn't a single person. There is a single person that kicked it off in early 2023. That was me. But I went out to the community. I showed everyone how many people responded, and it was just a few days on the run up to that vPub in March last year. Just over 700. I think it was 707 respondents, and I closed it down at that point. That was enough in order for me to put the vPub together. But the data that I generated was obviously very exciting. It is not one person's opinion, and it can never be one person's opinion, which is why I can't keep it. I can't keep it on this channel. Even if I'm just the host, and even if I'm just sharing what you voted for, I have to accept that there is a chance that I could be influencing the order of the placings, because it's my community. if there's going to be true value in it, it needs to be in a place that's more than one person, that's got a much wider reach, a much wider spread. Behind Dramface, there's over 20 active people at any one point in time. So it's not about that. Dramface doesn't have a face front and center like the vPub, the channel, the Aqvavitae channel does. So I had to give it to a place where it could offer more, and offer more to the industry too. Because if the industry wants feedback, they can choose to go out and canvass their own markets and use agents and people with skills and such abilities. They can do that and they can pay money for that. But right now, through platforms like this, through platforms like the Online Scotch Whisky Awards, they have tools available so that they can get feedback, independent feedback, absolutely honest feedback. Not necessarily the whiskies that are the top sellers, but the whiskies that are loved more than others. From that, they can extrapolate themes and they can understand what the community want. And before we start to sound like arrogant little enthusiasts, we have to remember and we have to take note of the fact that Macallan is today because of decades ago people shouting loudly about Macallan, people in the know. It's not the case today. It's not the case today. I might share with you where Macallan is on the list today. Think of Springbank today. Springbank don't really spend a lot of money on marketing. Let me tell you, they may pay photographers, they may have somebody employed to look after social media and communications and things like that, but they don't really do much in the way of marketing, and yet their product is in such high demand that it is literally close to unobtainium in 2024, and it has been for a little while now. Enthusiasts did that. Our opinion is valuable. It's not the only opinion out there, but as part of the mix, surely it's valuable. So I hope that this list, this whole concept can go on to have more value than perhaps it might have first seemed. Fastgraph is saying, you're taking the definition of influence on a whole new level. There are the enthusiast customers influence the industry through the Oswas, Dramface, you, Ralphie. Great idea. And the thing is if they don't agree with it, they can participate. They can directly affect it and get involved. It's done in such a way that it's very, very difficult for somebody to go in and break it. So if we can get into the thousands, if we can get thousands of people participating on this, even a large company getting a few dozen people to go in and just vote for their own products, it's not going to really have much of an impact on things. They have to register with an email address. And who's going to register lots and lots of accounts just to place some votes? I don't think that's going to happen. I think this is robust enough, hopefully, to really give us the truth. And by snapshot after snapshot after snapshot over periods of time, I'll talk a wee bit later about when I think those snapshots, should be, difficult word to say, snapshots. We'll be able to see the wax and wane of popularity. A producer comes out with a new rebrand, fantastic, we all love it, so they go up a wee bit. The prices are the same, but the prices go up much higher, or they redefine, they start to go down the road of luxury or something like this. Probably it's going to switch a lot of their fan base and enthusiasts off, and they might decide that that's a worthwhile risk, fine. But we will be able to track that. We'll be able to see how things go up in popularity and how things drop off in popularity. Very small sample size in 2023 when I did this for the vPub last year. But as we go forward and Dramface can hopefully build this and continue to host it in a very static space so that everybody knows where it is, hopefully that will build and be much, much more meaningful and be a much, much bigger sample size than just 700 odd people. Ben Dram Hunter is saying, Slanchivaroy, looking forward to your top 40 Scotch distilleries, and I'm very excited. Listen, that's the important thing, Ben. Wonderful to welcome in, buddy. It's not mine. It is not. My votes are in there. I put my 10 votes in. Of course I did. But this is, I'm going to be sharing the communities. I already shared it with you last year. None of this is going to be a real surprise. But what I'll do is I'll pull the curtain back a little bit further. And instead of stop focusing on the top 10 and giving you a resume of the top 25 like I did in 2023, we're going to go back further. We're going to go into The first thing that happened when I revealed the top 10 and told everybody the top 25, so that was position 11 to 25, I got a message immediately saying what was number 26. Fabulous, right? What was it, 26? So, you know, going to top 40 for Dramface seems like a reasonable thing to do. And we cut off at that point because we could see where the weighting of the votes were. We realized that top 40 was probably the meaningful number. I imagine we'll keep it at that for the short term. It might stretch or shrink. I don't know. This could be a bit of a malleable thing. It could be quite flexible, but top 40 for now. I think it's important though to maybe reveal a wee bit more than 40 tonight, because we won't really be doing that on Dramface. We'll be keeping it to that rigid 40. So if I share with you what's slipped just beyond, because I know people are going to come back and say, what's 41? What was position 41? So I'll tease it. I'll just draw the information back a little bit more. I'll maybe pick out one or two others that didn't even make the top 40 list and tell you where they are in the position in the charts tonight. I think I might have, I've not got my other window open, so I might have missed something. Let's catch up with that. Gerben is celebrating being a member of Barflies for 3 months. Gerben, thank you so much. I'm always nervous about pronouncing your surname. I'll get it down one day. Luverk, let's go with that. Gerben Luverk, that's my best effort, buddy. I hope it's okay. Thank you for your support as a barfly, along with Mark Goins, my friend. He's gifted 20 Aqvavitae memberships. What's he done there? He's given lots of people the ability to access the wee barfly loyalty badges, the lots channel-themed, whiskey-themed emoji that's in the mix there, and just participate in everything. $1.99 per month is the payment to be a member of. It's a YouTube thing, and it keeps all of the content on the channel ad-free. Hopefully you've noticed that when you click on a vPub session, whether you have YouTube Premium or not, just the standard free account, free access, you don't sit through ads. And the reason that you don't sit through ads is because of the Barfly membership support. Thank you all so much. Peter Lee's bought me a wee dram to say headache. Springbank will sort that out from today. He's been teasing me today. He was down at Springbank. There was loads and loads of lovely, delicious bottles on the shelves down there, as there always is. And he was sending me some photos. Peter, thank you for your dram, my friend. Thank you for everything. He might have brought me back a wee present. Seaweed World, good to see you. So good to see you. Hi, Roy, because you're loved. And also my firstborn son turned 40 on Valentine's Day. My goodness. Sherry Canary, you've got a 40-year-old son. I'll raise this wee glass. I know it's a day late. It was yesterday. But I'll say happy birthday. He's got a nice mum there. A very generous mum. Thank you for your dram, Sherry Canary. Over in Canada, of course you are. Cheers to you. Great. Jimmy's saying I can do a top 140 Scotch whisky distilleries. That's the thing, Jimmy. There's 141. Not all of them have released whisky, so I would like to know how you... It's down to your own personal sensibilities. Every one of the 141 distilleries is on the list. You go and you're presented with that list, and you just scroll down, and you just click the ones that you want to hit a vote on. The only other thing that you might want to do is that there's an optional feedback asking you what criteria you've chosen to select your votes by. So that's whether it's natural whiskey that's important to you, the price, various things that I've spoken about, and that'll help us understand the quality of the motives behind the people that's participating. And then there's a free text field, but you don't need to fill that out, only if you want to give feedback, and that's you done. And then you can save that wee link. You can bookmark the page. You can just float back in and log in and out as you please and keep things up to date, as I say. That's how it should be working. Oh, just it jumped again. My brother Ray saying Aqvavitae. Where can I vote for my least favourite distilleries? That's an interesting point, Ray. There is a temptation, and there's inevitably, I predict one of the most commonly asked questions about this is that, look, Roy, there's 141 distilleries here. You're telling us what the top 40 is. What's the bottom 10? What's the bottom 40? That it could move in that direction. And I don't think that we want to do that right now. I don't think we want to use this as a shame game. We want to celebrate whiskey. We want things to be positive. And the way you do that is kind of reward the ones from the community voice and say these are the distilleries that are doing the best thing. We don't want to say, look at these ones down here, because it's going to be a mix. It's going to be a mix of distilleries that's not really got a huge output, that's difficult to get hold of, don't have a lot of expressions, they haven't maybe released anything yet. Distilleries that are just kind of, they exist, but they're not really part of our community or the wider enthusiast zeitgeist yet. So to focus on the bottom of the table, I think is a mistake right now. That said, we reserve the right to use this information in any way that we feel is going to be a positive contribution to whiskey overall, a positive contribution to our community, our communities. And that means that we're collecting data over time that could be valuable. Right now, we're going with the top 40 only, Ray, and I'm sure that it makes sense to everybody why we're doing that. Sugar Kitty has joined Aqvavitae Barfly. Sugar Kitty, who's been around forever, looking after us, is part of the team, along with Helen and various other folk who look after keeping the chat clean and things like that. Very welcoming people in this community and in this chat. I'm very grateful for it. Thank you, Sugar Kitty. And David Hong has bought me a wee dram to say, hopefully I'll make my pilgrimage to Springbank eventually. There's no hope about it. Just do. Just do it, David. You will not regret it. And the word pilgrimage is not too great a word. Thanks for your dram. Cheers, David. Right, let's just get going. The way I'm going to work this tonight, I'm going to start with the top 10. After I've covered the top 10, I'm going to share some takeaways about the top 10, the shape of the top 10, my opinion, just looking at that snapshot of the top 10 distilleries as voted by you in 2023. After that, we'll go and we'll very, very quickly just do a quick digest of 25 through to 11. So that'll be the what's left of the top 25. And that will get us up to speed from where we were a year ago when we did this. Thereafter, I'll reveal a wee bit more and I'll tell you everything that came up to the top 40. And that's important to share with you because we'll monitor on Dramface whether something's moved up or whether something's static or whether it's moved down. So I'll share that with you today. And that's why we have to work from the original source data. The next snapshot, the next set of data that's going to be shared with you should be Dramface data, not mine again. I'll share with you the top 40. Then I'll share with you my takeaways from the overall top 40, some observations that I've made, some things to think about, maybe some predictions, and I might share with you the positions of some other distilleries that lie outside of that top 40, just for interest's sake. And then I'll reveal to everybody how they can get involved, how they can participate, how to go about it, and how to share with everyone what distilleries you are being engaged by. Zach Andrews, you superstar, Zach. Missed you last year, buddy. I don't know if I'll make it this year either, my friend, but you never know. It just might happen. He's saying cheers to all my lovely barflies. Cheers right back at you, Zach. Thank you for being a member for 47 months, getting on for 4 years, my goodness. And Mirko in Germany has just joined and signed up for the Aqvavitae barflies. Zach and Mirko, we've both had the pleasure of standing in each other's company, shaking hands and raising a wee glass. Cheers to you both. I can't decide who's number 141, Dalmore or Macallan, says Jimmy Legg. Inverurie Whiskey Shop is saying, think of us as the warm-up act for Aqvavitae. So glad you enjoyed it. So I think Inverurie's going out on a Thursday night. And interestingly, Inverurie Whiskey Shop, I have heard, have reached out to Dramface in order to get some of the Dramface team involved in them on a Thursday night. So it might mean that is going out before the vPub. Gerben is saying another great thing is that these kind of lists will give credit where credit is due, a compliment, a nice review, the opinion of the masses. Love it. That's right. And if we focus on the top rather than the bottom, Gerben, you're spot on. That is the intention there. Lowlander I just jumped Lowlander. I'll try and catch it. Why does that happen? There it is. Did you see our Demerkin bottles were on last month's SWA auction? A bit disappointing as to see it was for the community. Was it the Aqvavitae bottles? Listen, there's an inevitability there, Lowlander, and remember that we did well by the community because we managed to release over 600 bottles that time. If some of them make it out onto secondary, c'est la vie. We did what we wanted to do for our community. I think it's to dwell on things that we can't control. Things like that is, I don't know, I need to try and find pragmatism for it, buddy. But nice to have you in, Lowlander. Nice to welcome you. Sugar Kitty saying, always very welcome. The renewal was only necessary because of a credit card glitch. I had that same thing, the very same thing come up for me too. I realised that I had a subscription, a very specific subscription of whiskey content that I love, a channel, and it was constantly being declined. And I was a wee bit embarrassed because I wanted them to know that I still very much support what they do. Red Mordecai is saying, obviously, there is a direct correlation between integrity bottlings and the top distilleries, but that's not the whole story. E.g., why vote for a distillery whose products are unavailable? There's a bigger story to talk about. There are other things to parse out of the information, Reb. But if you give somebody 10 votes to vote on 10 distilleries, you cannot dictate to them their reasoning for what makes a distillery their favourite. It might be that Reb can't get a specific distillery out there in Israel, or it might be that Greg in France can't get something out there in Paris, and it might be that people in the States, and there's availability is different for everyone. But this is the entire community, as many people that wants to get involved. You choose the reasons for casting your votes. Just tell us what are your favourite distilleries, and if you like, spend a wee bit of time telling us what your motivations are and why they're your favourites. Mirko is saying, it was long overdue for me to become a barfly too. Mirko, it's wonderful to have you. I don't think anybody needs to be a member to self-refer as a barfly, right? You're all barflies. Anybody that wants to be a barfly is a barfly. Nick Gascoigne is celebrating being a member for 16 months. Aqvavitae, good evening to you and the barfly team. Nick, brilliant to have you in, buddy. My name is pronounced Lewerka. Okay, Lewerka. So it's not V as in the German. Gerben Lewerka. I'm going to do my best to remember that, my friend. Gerben Lewerka. Thank you for that. Lovely to give back on the topic on pronunciation. Wink, wink. Nice one, Gerben. Cheers. So is it Gerben or Gerben? Hard G or H? You can let me know that as well. Thank you for your dram. Okay. Come on, Roy. Let's get into this. Top 40 distilleries. What's going to be the best view? That view are making it a wee bit weird. You don't need to see me. Let's make this so that those folk that are watching on small screens or watching on their TV or something like that can see it a wee bit better. Let's share out of our new, this has been redressed as top 40. Obviously, when I focused on this last year, we focused on the top 10 and I shared the top 25. This week, this is how it's going to be shared on Dramface, of course, the top 40. Let's start with our top 10. Like Reb has already touched upon, you might see a bit of a theme in these top 10, and therefore it makes a lot of sense. But coming in at number 10, we have Ardbeg on Islay. For the top 10 only, I think only for the top 10, I've shared the vote percentage that they got. So, you can work out how many people voted for Ardbeg. You take 707, I think, participants it was, and 28% of that. So just over a quarter of the people chose to cast one of their 10 votes for Ardbeg on Islay. And I think that is fully my personal opinion. I have to be careful. I don't want to be seen to influence this too much. But it is, unfortunately, for me, I'd love to keep this thing. I really would love to keep it. I think it's great. But unfortunately for me, it's going to be passed on to Dramface. And I won't always necessarily get a position to share my opinions with you on it all the time. But I will try and keep it in check tonight. I think it's better that it's just left to you. But I fully believe that Ardbeg are in position 10 because of their core range that's focusing around their linchpin, if you like, of their excellent 10-year-old and the very often good Aqvavitae and Aqvavitae. Other things like the Wee Beastie are pretty decent. I know is pretty decent. Slightly different takes on Ardbeg. I know reasonable value, reasonable availability, and more than anything, reasonable price and natural presentation too. Well done, Ardbeg, and well done for taking up a place in the top 10. Number 9, We're on another island distillery, but we're over at Mull. We're at Tobermory for 9th position. Almost a third of the people chose to place a vote for Tobermory. Tobermory malt itself has become better and better and better over the years. The new 12-year-old, I think, is a huge step up from the one it replaced about 5 years ago when it replaced the 10-year-old. Some people hold a torch for that 10-year-old. They loved it dearly, but it's 12-year-old now. However, I think the reason that Tobermory have got into position number 9 on this community chart is because of Ledaig. Might remember that in 2023, my whiskey of the year was Ledaig 18. People rave about Ledaig 10. There's lots of people out there that love the value proposition of the Rioja Sinclair series. People seem to love peated Tobermory malt whiskey, and it's understandable why it's made it into the top 10. Tobermory 12 is cracking for the price, says Alan Smith. Glad you're enjoying it, Alan. Position 8 is taken up by Tobermory's sister distillery in the Southern Highlands, Deanston. This is incredible to me. I remember there were time, and it's very vivid in my memory, a time where I just didn't connect with Deanston at all. Then, through a switch to natural presentation, slowly building their brand, building the quality, much, much better cask management plays out over the years. Soon the whiskey becomes released and it's getting better and better and better. Nowadays, Deanston is firmly established in the zeitgeist of the whiskey enthusiast. 46.3% like it is right across. CVH Spirits portfolio, fantastic, should be celebrated. Unchill filtered too. We believe it to be natural colour, but we've noticed that that statement has started to drop from a lot of expressions. We would like to see it back, please. But we can see over a third of people chose to place a vote for Deanston in the Southern Highlands, and I know for sure that it's very well deserved. Decent pricing too, especially in the core range. Position 7, Isle of Arran. One of the most popular distilleries in recent years. Again, one of those growth distilleries. There was a time in my whiskey memory, my whiskey journey, that I wasn't really connecting with Arran. And I remember it was the original Arran 10-year-old and the original Arran 14-year-old, the discontinued Arran 14-year-old, that made me realise that this really had come of age, this distillery in Lochranza. Just a fantastic, fantastic distillery. Very grateful to have it. They're very playful with their cask finishes. They're playful with their special editions. They've got lots of a range out there. They were doing peated and unpeated malt for a long time. Fingal's Cut, for example. They were doing Macri Moor. Sorry, Macri Moor wasn't the Fingal's Cut expression. Macri Moor was a peated, but now they've got Lag in the south of the island, and that is a distillery to keep our eyes on too. Fantastic stuff. This just says Isle of Arran, but specifically we're speaking about Lochranza here. 36% placing a vote for 7th place Arran. Position 6 is the first of the Campbelltown entries. Kilkerran malt coming from Glengyle Distillery, owned by Jane A. Mitchell, also owners of Springbank, of course. We couldn't buy this stuff up until 2017. We could buy it as work in progress, but it was finally released as a core range. In fact, I think it was maybe 2016, the 12-year-old Kilkerran 12-year-old came out in 2016. And from then on, it's just become a thing of beauty. It's not only my whiskey of the year and their 16-year-old, very difficult to choose that over the 12, honestly, but it's also my producer of the year for 2024. I love the stuff so much. Look over my left shoulder here. There's a full shelf of it. And there's even more than that over here. And this is not because I'm a collector in any way. This is a cookie trail of exploration of Kilkerran. Just a fantastic Campbelltown distillery. I hope you guys are enjoying it too. 40% of the people chose to place a vote for Kilkerran, and they come in at number 6. We're at the top 5 now, and at number 5, the next entry from Campbelltown, Glen Scotia. What a renaissance we've seen at Glen Scotia. If anyone out there is still wondering what Glen Scotia tastes like, or what the offering is for Glen Scotia, if you can, your next opportunity, please just go ahead. Don't dwell. Don't wait. However, if you do wait, worry not. It's getting better all the time. On a recent tour in 2022, the very best Glen Scotia I tasted was the youngest I tasted on that tour. It was a 6-year-old from a bourbon barrel, and the texture and the flavour and the fruit and the saltiness and everything was just gorgeous. It was straight from the cask. It wasn't something I could buy, but I just look forward to the future for Glen Scotia. I feel like it's only going to get better as long as it remains in canny hands. 42% of the vote for Glen Scotia. People seem to be loving it. Inverurie Whisky Shop is saying, stop it. Glen Scotia needs to be a secret. That's the problem, though, isn't it? When we go out to the community, we can't keep these secrets. But for everything that's exposed and it's a success, surely it leaves some space in its wake for somebody to follow the model. That's what we hope. Position 4, Ardnamurchan. Incredible story, and an absolutely incredible story. The first whiskey available from Ardnamurchan came out in 2020, just 4 years ago. This is a zeitgeist distillery. This is on the lips of many right now, and it's not even in all the markets that it wants to be in yet, but there's more of it getting out there all of the time. And for the last year or two, we've seen it sticking on the shelf. You can normally walk into retailers where it's sold in the market that's sold and pick up a batch of the AD core range. It's gorgeous stuff. People are loving it. 46.8% ABV, fully natural presentation and transparency beyond expectation. You scan that QR code in the back of an Ardnamurchan bottle and it tells you everything you need to know and lots of other things that you don't really need to know as well, just because they can. It's a fantastic proposition, really exciting for our future as whiskey botherers as well. Crazy that it's already in the top 5, but this is not just one person's opinion. This is consensus from people trying this whiskey and enjoying it. Ben Dramhunter is saying, but I thought a whole point of Aqvavitae in the barflies is to evangelize. When it deserves to be evangelized, Ben, absolutely. And also, if you're going to warn people off, if you're going to say this is not good value for money, this is not something that we're enjoying or whatever, it could be argued that's also a form of community evangelism. We're at the top 3 now, with 42% also placing a vote for Ardnamurchan. Number 3 is Bruichladdich on Islay. Back over to Islay, another Renaissance distillery. Remember, this was shuttered in the 1990s. Just coming up on 25 years ago now, Bruichladdich was brought back to life. Shaky start, finding their feet, but 25 years down the line, 25 years later, they're at position 3 in the communities. From a community's perspective, that's stunning to me. I'm going to pour something special just now. Let's bring that off. I'll bring it back up in a second. I know a lot of you have seen this, and there's been a lot of chatter spoken about this bottle. Bruichladdich had an 18-year-old in the past, but it was about 15 or 16 years ago that the last one came out. This is like a little cardboard jacket, by the way. This is their 18-year-old. I just want to show you this. This just kind of pops off here. There's a kind of tension fit tab. And we've got this jacket that opens up to reveal the bottle inside. This is their 18-year-old, of course. As we pop it out, I mean, this weighs nothing. There's no weight in this whatsoever, which is quite clever, I suppose. At first, I wasn't sure about this wee jacket, but as you can see, I'm storing it in the jacket. I must like it. But I've kind of come to terms with it, and I quite like it. I think it's a neat little lightweight, easily recycled or easily, it's compostable, it's easily thrown away, let's say. The bottle is a slightly taller version, actually, of the standard Bruichladdich bottle. It might even be a wee shade narrower, I'm not sure. Huge label on it, to the point that you can hardly see the whiskey inside. You struggle to see the colour through this blue label here. But this 18-year-old came out with its glass topper. So we do a Waterford, don't we? We pop it with our thumb to the side, I think. Yeah, that's the easiest way to pop it off. And I think a lot of people were a wee bit surprised and disappointed at its £150 price point. I was. When I heard it was coming out, I was a wee bit nervous. Look at it. I've only had this bottle 2 weeks, maybe maybe not even 2 weeks. All it needed to be for its £150 was good. All it needed to be was something that you could say, okay, this is maybe worth £150. That's asking the whiskey to do a lot. £150, almost $200. Okay, it's 18-year-old whiskey. It's 40, what did they put it out at? 40, no, 50% ABV. Of course, it's Bruichladdich. They put it out at 50% ABV. Of course they did. Fully transparent, fully natural whiskey. No arguments to be had there. It's been so long since we've seen an age statement like this on a core range. This is core range. It's not a special edition. It's going to be part of their core range from Bruichladdich. And I'm sorry for everyone that's either refusing not to spend the money on this or that they simply, understandably, can't afford to spend the money on this. It was difficult for me. But it's gorgeous whiskey. It truly, truly is. Is it £150 worth? That's where the subjectivity comes in strong. It's not just about, do I love this whiskey? Is it a good nose? Is it a good palate? How much we can spend on whiskey is a very, very personal thing. £150 for an 18-year-old is just so saddening. When this bottle is empty, I'm not going to be running out to replace it and buy another one at £150. But the best way I can relate to you how I'm feeling about this bottle is the level. It's going down very well. Anybody I've poured it for, very well received. I was not disappointed with this whiskey. That's just the truth of it. Make of it what you will. Cheers, everyone. This is a rare thing these days, just to have that gorgeous life, that vibrance, that texture, that fruit. Any kind of fruit you like, you can find in this. You want to taste pears? There's pears in this. You want to get tropical fruit? You want to get fresh fruit? You want to get cut fruit, orchard fruit, citrus fruit? Just so fruity. No peat or smoke. And people that are looking for that very, very typical, slightly lactic trait that can bleed through Bruichladdich expressions, you're going to struggle to find it in this one. This is just all about the fruit and the balance. Just a lovely, elegant, balanced thing. Incredible that this can come from it. This is a type of profile that I do not associate with Bruichladdich. Over the years, it's been quite brash and robust. It's often used, it's relied a lot on the cask over the years. What we've got here is a very well made, very well put together whiskey that is using the cask in a very, very balanced and light way. It's just fabulous. This would be able to go up against Springbank for position 1 if this was more affordable. The biggest, scariest thing about this is this redefined thing. They don't put the word luxury on this label, but in all the marketing that supports this, they talk heavily about luxury, luxury, luxury. Don't get me wrong. It is a luxury to be able to spend £150 on a bottle of whiskey. It's a luxury to be able to spend money on any whiskey, if we're honest about it. But Bruichladdich, for me, was never about luxury. Bruichladdich was a friendly, accessible place. They were a wee bit eccentric and out there, a wee bit maverick, a wee bit playful even. If they, really, please, the luxury. Anyway, even before this was launched, they managed to make it into position 3. Who managed to get ahead of them? Well, of course, it was their Islay, the Islay distillery that's just a wee bit up the road from them. It was Bunnahabhain, 48% of the vote. And Bruichladdich was the exact same. There was absolutely nothing in it, by the way, on the vote. Almost half of the people involved chose to place a vote for Bruichladdich and Bunnahabhain. Bunnahabhain took it by a nudge and managed to squeak into position 2. Quite incredible. This is consensus. If half the people step forward to participate in this thing, choose to place a vote for a distillery, there's a good chance that distillery is connecting with them, right? For whatever their personal reason is. We all know what number 1 is. But before I get there, I'll jump in to speak to you guys. Julian is saying, can't see the need for the pricing, a distillery for the people? Question mark, question mark. I understand, Julian. What we need to do is we need to focus on this Bruichladdich 18 and say, how much would I need to spend elsewhere to get a similar thing? Well, you can't get any independent bottlings of Bruichladdich at that age and price point I'm talking about. In fact, they're very often more expensive. And even if you go onto the mainland and other places, it's quite tricky. I think in terms of balance and pure fruity, delicious experience, the thing that comes closest to this would probably be the Secret Speyside Longmorn 18 that I love so much. 48% ABV, very similar on ABV as well. And we believe it to be more or less natural. It might be, we don't know about colour and things, but a gorgeous bottle of whiskey. Started at £85. It's now crept up to about 110, quite a bit cheaper. But if Longmorn have just rebranded, just look at the prices of the new Longmorn releases that's out there. It's ridiculous. This is the price of 18-year-old whiskey, it would seem, as we go forward. And if we choose to participate in that, we can, if we can afford it. Our only other option is to just not participate and step out of it. And if we do that, it's okay, because there's millions of other whiskey to take care of us. Whether or not you can compare that whiskey with this, well, that's a whole other discussion. The cork is an easy giveaway. Aye, of course, Jimmy. Inverurie Whisky Shop is saying, how does it compare to £200 for a 16-year-old Kilchoman? That's right. Listen, I only had one sample at a festival of that Kilchoman. And I would say where the Kilchoman left me nonplussed, wanting to explore it a wee bit more maybe, this one immediately reassured me that it was good whiskey, and I'm speaking about from the neck pour. Ian Bruce is saying luxury will become the norm if people buckle for the FOMO and pay out the higher prices. Pity vote couldn't stick together like the farmers battling the EU regulations. That's right, and unfortunately it seems that there are enough people out there to continue to pay these prices because it seems to be selling out. Alistair Gray is saying, is there ever a Speyside distillery in the top 20 with Diageo and Chivas? I wouldn't be surprised if there isn't. More to follow on that, Alistair. Stay tuned. Sugar Kitty is saying it's hard to talk about price for us when that Bruichladdich bottle is 175, but a Springbank 18 is 325 plus. Springbank 18 has never been £150 in the UK retail, although it's landing in the UK this week. It's going to be interesting to see where it ends up. So I know, Sugar Kitty, what's happening with the supply chain for Springbank with you over there. Finally, then I was saying, God, I feel guilty spending £180 on 2 bottles of Blue Spot that the Whisky Exchange let us buy this time. Yeah. It's so much. It's so much. Highland Hamish is saying, called out the top 5 literally as you announced them. Agree with them all and love them all. Well, it is the exact same chart that I shared in 2023, but Hamish, it is worthwhile to go over them again. Malt Monk is saying, Aqvavitae, evening, Roy. Good to see you, Justin. He's saying, I've noticed Gav's Drams is only 28 subs away from a magical 1,000 in subs. Can we get him over the barflies? I cannot. I have already subbed to Gav's Drams. I've done my bit. I enjoy Gav's Drams. He's one of the most charming, honest, direct, straightforward purveyors of whiskey appreciation I can put my hands on. So I'm going to do, if somebody can get Gav's Drams, I'll try and do it right now. Link, we'll try and get him over that 1,000. The man absolutely deserves it. There he is there. Grab that and grab his link. And I'll put it in here. And hopefully we can pin it. Oh, Sugar Kitty did it as well. Sugar Kitty, I knew you'd have been on it. So there we go, Gav's Drams. Let's get the biggest thing about that whole 1000 thing on YouTube. It's not just a party and a pour a dram and a celebration. It unlocks a lot of tools that Gav is then able to help manage his channel better, including monetization and memberships and things. I don't know what the actual rules are today in terms of how many views and hours viewed and things you need, but 1K has always been a magical kind of milestone to and it takes a real grind. Gav's been doing it for a long time now. It's not somebody that's been in it for 10 minutes. It's not somebody that's been in it just a few months. Gav's been grinding out his content and sharing it with us all, and he deserves it. He hit 1,000. Hey, let's raise a wee glass of this for our pal Gav in Edinburgh. Cheers, buddy. I'm looking forward to the next time I raise a glass for you and shake your hand. Congratulations, Gav. You've done it. 1,000 subs. Deserved, buddy. When I subscribed to Gav's channel, I clicked the bell icon. So when Gav's videos drop, I get a notification to tell me he's put out a new video. Hope you all understand his accent. Of course, position number 1 in the top 10 is Springbank. Of course it is. Can we look at that percentage? 69%. So we dwell on the fact that Bunnahabhain and Bruichladdich were able to command almost half the votes. Almost half the respondents, rather, chose to place one of their votes on them. But we've got over 2/3, knocking on for 3/4 of the people that stepped in to vote were willing to put a vote Springbank's way. Now, I know that a lot of you are going to say, that's not people that are drinking Springbank. That's not people that are able to buy Springbank. That's just people jumping on the hype train, the hype train, the hype train. Sorry, that's going to be mostly people that's just come into whiskey in recent years. That's not fair. Springbank has been available for a long, long time to most people, and it's only recently it's become really difficult to get a hold of. Springbank have been grinding out and working on their very eccentric, unique, integrity forward model for a long, long time. So to start suggest that their success is all about hype is really, really rude. That's not the case. I'm telling you that 69% of the vote is people that have touched Springbank and fallen in love with it to the point that they're happy to see Springbank in first position. Somebody was on, Gerben was on earlier talking about making a pilgrimage. I think it was Gerben, or maybe it was Justin. It is a pilgrimage to go down there and see the way they do things. It's very different from almost every other distillery you'll touch. Position 1 is not only deserved, I think it's going to be almost impossible to shift. I want to share with you some takeaways. I think this is going to be interesting, okay? All of the top 10 distilleries, without exception, have a focus on natural colour. As Reb predicted, that's not a surprise to anyone, but surely that's the #1 feedback. If you're going to look at what people are actively enjoying and sharing and buying and raving about, and not just buying one bottle of, but multiple bottles of from those distilleries, colour is clearly an important thing. Natural colour is an important thing. Stop relying on fake colour. Stop it. There's no need for it. There is no need for it. All the top 10 distilleries also have a focus on 46% plus ABV. Why? Well, because if they put it out at 46% plus ABV, they don't need to chill filter it. If they don't need to chill filter the whiskey, that means that the mouthfeel and the flavour, the full natural experience of the whiskey can be left more or less intact. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that you're only going to get enjoyment from whiskies that are 46% plus, but generally speaking, there's truth in it. I do have lots of 43% whiskies, 40% whiskies on the shelves, and I do still enjoy them. But in my experience, natural whiskey will always win the day. It's about integrity forward. It's about not fussing, not cosmetically altering the whiskey, not stripping the whiskey, not playing with it, not taking anything away and not adding anything. It's about being straight. This is malt whiskey. If you want to chill filter blended whiskey, if you want to mess around and add colour to grain whiskey and make a cheap blend and make a consistent blend and make it like Coca-Cola, then that's what blends are probably for. Malt whiskey will fight you. Malt whiskey will go cloudy if you take it down below 46%. Malt whiskey will not be the same every batch by batch by batch. Malt whiskey is a small batch product. Let's just embrace that because it's wonderful stuff. The community is telling us what they like. Campbelltown, all three Campbelltown distilleries make it comfortably into the top 6. Glengyle at 6, Glen at 5, I believe, Springbank at number 1. Campbelltown. This is consensus. This is interesting. I want you to have a wee look at this. This is the geographical layout and concentration of our top 10 whiskies. West is best, as they say. We've got Deanston right smack bang in the middle of the central belt there. Deanston just outside of Doon, just north of Stirling. That's the furthest east. Furthest north, we've got Ardnamurchan, and we've got Tobermory there across the water from them on the Isle of Mull. But if you look at that really, really compact thing, Islay, Campbelltown, Arran, the Western Highlands, the islands, that's surprising to me for the top 10. That's one of my takeaways to share with you. I wonder what you think about that. Greg's Whisky Guide to St. Springbank is number 5 in my list, but sometimes feeling number 1 indeed depends as for other distilleries of which expressions we're talking about, but consistency is often there. Greg's got his own list. He was talking about doing his own personal 100, which is super, super difficult to do, let me tell you. Hopefully this community-sourced 100 is going to be much more than a single person's voice, but much easier to execute as well. It's still not going to be an easy task to go in and allocate your 10 votes, but listen, you can come back and change your mind. But if you don't give your votes if you don't feel it's deserved, you can go in and just give 1 vote. You can give 5, you can give 8, you can give... There's no minimum, but the maximum you can give is 10. And that, as Greg's pointing out, is where the challenge comes in. Klitz is saying, opened my latest bottle of Springbank 10 a couple of weeks ago, and dang it, despite all the expectations I had, it didn't disappoint. It's just gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous whiskey. Justin Wan is saying, I've already made my pilgrimage, but I'd like to return someday. And you're not unique in that. We all feel the very, very same way. Inverurie Whisky Shop is saying, I fell for Springbank in a way as they weren't prepared for or expecting this massive surge. I think he's saying he feels for Springbank yet. They have been forced to upset some loyal customers, and that must be horrible, not financially. It's absolutely horrible, and they're very personable people, and it's all about people with them, and it's about relationships and all of that great stuff. Ian Bruce is saying Springbank not only keep their distillery going, but deserve the accolade for maintaining a whole whiskey region in town. Pure belligerence. It's part of their culture. But because they believe in it, passion drives them. Doing the right thing drives them. I really believe that. Sachin Kenneth is saying, I'll never even made a pilgrimage to Scotland, but this year I will. Sachin, you need to do that. You need to do that, buddy. I know you're just a wee bit south of us. It's a wee bit of a drive for you. Maybe wait till the daylight's a bit brighter and the weather's a wee bit better too. Jimmy Legacy, a little disappointed by Loch Lomond's absence as well. Loch Lomond are in the mix, buddy. They're coming up. They're coming up. And remember where Loch Lomond have come from not 5 or 6 years ago. Falscraft is saying there are good whiskies below 46, but all of these could be better if they were 46 or above. We agree, Klaus. We absolutely do. Except if they are very cloudy. I don't even mind if there's a bit of cloud in my whiskey. I really don't mind it, but I understand why it'd be off-putting for some. And Reb is saying, I think it's actually a positive thing to point out the most abused distilleries in urgent need of intensive care, such as Scapa. I think we might be able to touch on that a wee bit later, Reb. I think so. Gav Strams was in. I got a wee. Gav Strams is saying, Roy, thank you. Yes, we have done it. 1K. Many thanks. Congratulations, buddy. Like I've already said when I raise my glass to you, buddy, and say congratulations. It's deserved. Super stuff. Oh, a very generous Stram has come in with no comment or anything. My goodness, thank you very much. Wook has bought me a generous enough dram to buy an entire bottle, to be honest with you. Amazing. Wook, I think it's the first time I've shouted out your name as well. But I'll raise this glass to Wook, wherever you are. It looks like continental Europe somewhere, maybe. Thank you very, very much for the generous dram. Cheers and welcome to the vPub. So are these distilleries only being judged on their OBs and not independent bottle versions? Absolutely not, Graham. The sensibilities, the motivations, the reasons you choose for casting your votes is down to you. Honestly, down to you. Your experience of your interaction with that distillery, something that's made you say, this is one of my favourites. Whatever reason you've got for having a favourite distillery you use in this, through the liquid, through visitor experiences, through the cultures, through philosophy, whatever it may be, just through it, because it's an aesthetic place. I can't decide, nobody can decide for you what your favourite distilleries are or the reasons for making them such. Paul Gianandrea, Paul Gianandrea, that looks like a new name, but you're a barfly, seen Aqvavitae, speaking of distilleries that have a legendary status. How do you feel about the upcoming revival of Rosebank? Excited or apprehensive? Apprehensive with a huge capital A. E. McLeod are behind it there. If we look at what they're doing with Glengoyne and Tamdhu and the direction of their products and the pricing of their products, we're a wee bit nervous, honestly speaking, Paul. But let's wait. Innocent until proven guilty, right? And they're building it based on a legend that was built up post-closure. Nobody wanted Rosebank when it was open. But the enthusiasts got hold of it as it became older and older and older, that really elegant triple distilled lowland style. Really probably one of the best examples of its type. That's what built the legend. And they're going to try and cash in on that, of course. My worry is by how much they're going to try and cash in on it. Right, let's move on. Let's remind you quickly of the top 25. Jimmy Legg wants to see where Loch Lomond is in the top 25. This is no different from what I shared with you last year. Don't need to dwell on this too much. Maybe we'll dwell more on the top 40 and beyond, I think. Top 25, everyone. Coming in at 25, just to remind you all, was Talisker, a Diageo entry. I'm going to summarise how let's say the big players, the big corporates did in this list and do a wee bit of a summary at the end. But we've got an entry in here from Diageo. Now, remember, this was March 2023. They had already put out their 18-year-old at the ridiculously doubled, hiked prices by this time. I think that if that hadn't happened, they would have been much higher. Nevertheless, Talisker at number 25. Glenfarclas, family distillery in Speyside at number 24. I just don't understand why this isn't higher. Spend a bit of time thinking about it. You could maybe look at it and say, okay, we need to stop with the 40%, stop with the 43%, bring us more like the 46% 15-year-old, bring us more natural whiskies. We don't really need it to be consistent, Glenfarclas, but we need the quality to be consistent. And I think in my own experience, sometimes that quality has dropped a wee bit below that minimum acceptable level on some of the expressions. 23 is Benromach, now run by Brown-Forman. Things have changed a wee bit there. Certainly a lot more expensive to participate from what it was back in the magical days of the Billy Walker days, 2015, 2016, 2017. However, it still made it into the top 25. I guess this is on the downward slope now. It's my guess. Colilla, another Diageo distillery, loved by many, is the famous, it's Arthur Motley, I think, that coined the phrase, thank goodness for Colilla, right? The distillery that does all the heavy lifting for that Islay smoky malt whiskey. Another phrase that you'll hear about Colilla is it's difficult to screw up a Colilla. I've tried one or two that weren't great, but generally speaking, it's just one of the most consistent malts out there. Almost fully automated. However, it shows that it can be done and it can still produce a good spirit. Enough of you are connecting with it to have it at number 22. 21 is, again, another Diageo distillery, the sister of Colilla on the Kildalton coast, on the south coast of Islay. Lagavulin at 21, that's a surprise to me. One of my favourite ever distilleries. Really, the relationship I've had with Lagavulin over the years has just been so emotional, so up and down and rocky. But today, I'm a wee bit pragmatic and ambivalent. The prices are what they are. I've got some nice Lagavulin on the shelf and I'll make that do. Maybe Lagavulin isn't for me anymore. Still, you guys love it. It's in at 21. And number 20 is Craigellachie. I believe the only entry from Dewar's in this top 25 list. But a wonderful distillery, probably on the way up, actually. The 17-year-old, the 23-year-old and beyond, these are expensive things. But that's solid 13. Craigellachie is building its reputation based on that 13-year-old and the independent bottlers through SMWS and places like that. That's where people have worked out how wonderful, robust, and weighty and delicious a spirit Craigellachie can be. Herben is saying spot on, consistency and quality beats consistency and colour every day. Absolutely, Herben, there's no doubt about it. It's malt whiskey we're speaking about, isn't it? Julian Rickman is saying, tried Kalila 12 again. What a great dram. Always to stick to independent bottlings and so consistent. Especially some of the Port Askegs that's come out recently have been absolutely gorgeous. Prices are creeping up, but that's less to do with Elixir and Port Askeg and more to do with how much they're having to pay for the casks, or how much they need to come back in order to justify offering up the casks as a bottling rather than a commoditized investment. A really generous dram came in from David Byrne as well. David Byrne or Byrne, I'm not sure, David. I'm going to go with David Byrne. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, no comment or anything, but he's bought me a very generous dram and I love it. Thank you, David. Thank you for your support. Cheers. Greg is saying they keep the greater stuff for the family cask range, in my humble opinion, says Greg's Whiskey Guide, talking about Glenfarclas's family cask. Okay. Let's go on with the rest of the top 25. In number 19, Clynelish. This is the highest place Diageo distillery in the list. So, the main producer in Scotch whisky with 30 malt distilleries under their belt. Once they open Port Ellen later this year, it'll be 30 malt distilleries in the Scotch landscape alone. The best that they can do is position 19. And arguably, maybe Clynelish is maybe the best distillery in order to do that. Once more, the only reason that they're able to get into position 19 is nothing or very little that's been done officially from Clynelish. The 14-year-old is solid most of the time. Does suffer from batch variation, of course. But the reason we love Clynelish is through independent bottlers. Make no mistake. I don't know how much Diageo can take the plaudits for this position. They can do better in this position. They can do better with their products. I don't know how much they care. I don't know how much they're capable. Sometimes it's so frustrating. I'm sorry. Position 18, under the radar, and yet Ben Nevis Distillery has made it ahead of Clynelish, Western Highland Distillery, up there in Fort William. Really not an easy, not a beginner's whiskey, a difficult, almost industrial style. Can be really quite funky at times, can be a dirty whiskey. But my goodness, when you get a good one, it can knock you on your backside and make you glad to be alive. Ben Nevis deserves to be in this list. Interesting to see it at position 18. 17 is Loch Lomond. Jimmy Legg was asking where it is. I guarantee you, if we'd done this 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, Loch Lomond, I don't think would have even made it into the list. I expect Loch Lomond to continue to do very well on this list going forward. And if things continue along the trajectory of recent years, it'll only do better. Glencadam at number 16. So from the Southern Highlands of Loch Lomond over to the Eastern Highlands, quite amazing how many Highland distilleries are in this list. Ben Nevis as well, Western Highlands. Glencadam, fantastic, fantastic stuff. Again, their 18-year-old came out last year at 130 odd pounds, 135 pounds. We were flabbergasted at the price. I've just shared a Bruichladdich with you at 150 pounds. It's crazy where we are. However, the Glencadam Reserva series that are coming out with their different cask finishes, if you want to play with what port or what PX or what Oloroso does to whiskey, you can pick up their very inexpensive sub £50 expressions. Their 10-year-old, fully natural, one of the most honest whiskies on the market, less than £50. Gorgeous stuff. Closer to £40 actually in the UK. Deserving to be at number 16. Number 15, we have Edradour. It's interesting to me how Edradour got here. It's not through their 10-year-old, sub 46% or actually 40% ABV. I think it's more to do with their straight from the cask series, their signatory independent bottlings, their Balakans, their Caledonia 12-year-old at 46% ABV and 12 years age statement, fully natural, a big bruiser of a whiskey that at Caledonia. This is a geek's distillery, Edradour, and it deserves to be up here. 14, Glenallachie, a Renaissance distillery. Nobody cared about Glenallachie until Billy Walker got a hold of it, let's be honest. Yes, it's a cask story right now, but that was flipped on its head in 2023 when the Michael Tor series came out. That's Billy Walker's liquid. And as Glenallachie goes forward, we're going to get more and more of his liquid in the mix, and it's only going to get better. Position 13, Isla's Kilchoman, the farm distillery over there on Isla. Terrific whiskey, getting better all the time. Yes, we have a go at it because of the ridiculous, just unintelligible price for the 16-year-old. It was a very small amount. I guess it's precious whiskey. We can make excuses for them and things, but I think it was too much, and I think it put a lot of people off. Invested fans were put off Kilchoman's direction there. However, let's judge them on the Mahir Bay. Let's judge them on the Sanic. Just fantastic whiskies, getting better all the time. They're getting better at what they make, but they're also able to maybe use a bit more mature stock in the mix too. Number 13 for Kilchoman. Ahead of them by one place is Laphroaig. I'm actually surprised how well Laphroaig have done in this list at position 12. I don't know if it's because of their 10-year-old. I know it's a gateway whiskey for a lot of people. It's certainly the whiskey that brings a lot of people into Scotch. But for me, I think it's more likely the quarter cask and the 10-year-old cask strength and things. Maybe that's just me being quite blinkered, me being Roy, me being Aqvavitae, me sharing with you the things that I've enjoyed from Laphroaig. But I think that is what's made Laphroaig get so high up in this list. And then finally, position 11, to close out the top 25, we've got Benromach. Surely Benromach can just push a wee bit further and break into the top 10. I think it's deserved. Especially if they give us the you-know-what amplification to the you-know-what. We say it almost every week on the vPub. It doesn't have to be 43%. That's enough. I won't say any more than that. Sorry, Benromach. Well deserved. I've been enjoying. You can see in 1 week how much I've got through this whiskey. I'll say again, responsible drinking. This is not me guzzling this on my own. This is me sharing samples and pouring it for people, especially people that would watch the vPub and then turn up here and say, oh, I saw your reaction to the new 2014 Organic, and I pour it for them and they say, aye, okay, I get it. So just great stuff. The contrast series is great. The cask strength is great. Why their core range 10-year-old, 15-year-old, 21-year-old is still at 43% and you're still chill filtering it is unintelligible. Maybe you're not chill filtering it. Maybe you're just putting out 43%, but you don't put that on the label. And when you don't chill filter, you are putting it on the label for us. So we're left to assume, I guess, that the core range stuff, 10, 15, and 21 is chill filtered. Anyway, leave it at that. I know, broken record. Gerben is saying, sorry, Gerben, that jumped there. It's difficult. Should be careful. There's a lot of interaction tonight, a lot of feedback. Fantastic to see. Gerben, I've missed your comment, buddy. I hope it wasn't an important one. Fernando saying, are we surprised? Don't see Oban in the top 25. Stay tuned. See if we can find it a wee bit later. I'll do my best. Inverurie Whiskey Shop is saying Glencadam is in my top 3. Not the shops, but Mike's. Superb dram, superb value. So I guess, so Mike is from Inverurie Whiskey Shop, but he's in here as Mike, expressing his opinions as personal and not that of the business of the shop. I think that's a given nowadays, I hope, but it's nice of you to acknowledge it at least, Mike. Glencadam has got better and better. Graham Fraser saying, I wonder how many barflies choose distilleries here that they can access bottles of in their local market. It's got to be a factor. Absolutely. It's huge. We have to recognise that, but we either just do the thing and recognise that it is going to be very, very market dependent, or we choose not to do it at all. Well, Brother Ray saying, I had a great distillery visit experience with the Laphroaig distillery. I've had many. And listen, see a lot of distilleries that get a hard time from us based on the product that they bottle and put out there. Never discount how wonderful the distillery can be, the whiskey that they make, the people that work there, the offering of a visitor experience that they can have. It can be really, really fabulous. Matt Horsham is saying, has anyone put Benromach on the spot about the question? Yes, and the answer is usually, look, it's selling. As long as it sells, they're not going to change it. It's just obvious, right? That's just how it is. Let's motor on. I need another dram for this. No, I'll have a wee bit of water. That's us right up to speed to where we were in March 2023. And I've shared with you and reminded everybody where it stands as I hand this over to Dramface for you to run with, and you to please take this to every environment that you think is an appropriate thing. We're not chasing numbers here. So don't just throw it into places that people will come and vote. Put it in appropriate places where you think that the communities are invested and involved in Scotch malt whisky, where they have valuable opinions to share. It doesn't need to be experienced opinions. It's literally, this vote can be open to somebody who's just started in their whiskey journey, but had lovely experiences with 2 or 3 or 4 distilleries, and they can still place 2 or 3 or 4 votes. But it's especially important that we get these kind of really experienced people involved, people that have been around for a while and know, and they're canny about whiskey. They know how much they have to pay to get the good experiences in 2024, and they're willing to share that information with the community through voting. Share it wherever you enjoy whiskey online. Share it with your local clubs, all of that kind of thing. The more people that can get involved, the better. But I think we would want to focus more on the quality and the value of the participation rather than the number. But that's where we are. We're up to speed with where I left it. Let's go a wee bit further. Let's share with you the distilleries that's going to take it from the top 25 to the top 40. This is going to be interesting for everyone. As I say, as soon as I put this out, I got a message to say, Roy, you shared the top 25. What was position number 26? It was incredible. It was great fun. Mika's celebrating being a member for the Barflies for 13 months, saying, stop mansplaining about the Benromach. We know. Sorry, Mika. Listen, I can't just, if I imagine that there are some people being in the vPub for the first time and I say, we know what we're talking about in Benromach, and then I just kind of leave a ... in the air. I don't know if that's fair to everyone. We're going to keep having a whinge about it until it's not there to whinge about anymore, and then we'll celebrate it. Anyway, let's go on with the top 40. Coming in at number 40 is Benromach. Benromach. Ben Rhines to all the Americans out there. No, it's Benromach, a Diageo distillery. The only official bottling from this distillery is a Flora and Fauna, 15-year-old. It's a very, very good Flora and Fauna. It's a wee bit engineered. It can be a wee bit flat at times. Generally speaking, it's one of my picks out of the Flora and Fauna. It's a good Flora and Fauna expression. I'm telling you, this has made it into the top 40 because of the independent bottlings. It is not the Flora and Fauna expression with its limited availability. It's very, very selective markets. Benromach is in here because people love it from independents. And it's a fantastic distillate. Up until about 2008, I think it was partially triple distilled. Now it's just double distilled, but it still has that quite bold, robust, quite heavy Speyside character. It's not a typical Speysider. It's a great liquid. 39. We have the highest entry from a Chivas Brothers Pernod Ricard distillery. Nothing from their portfolio gets higher than 39. I think the only reason that Aberlour is here is because of the Abuna and maybe 1 or 2 other higher ABV releases. That is just shocking as a takeaway from me. That only in the top 40 we get 1 Pernod Ricard distillery, Chivas Brothers. It's abuse. Position 38, the Balvenie. Grants. Grants have 4 distilleries, Pernod Ricard have 12. This is the only entry in the top 40 from Willie Grant's. No Glenfiddich, no Crinvy, no Ailsa Bay. Still, is that Peat Week, that 17-year-old that I picked up recently and shared on a vPub with you at the end of last year? I love this stuff. Balvenie is capable of making absolutely fabulous malt whiskey. You seem to enjoy it, and it made it into the top 40. 37, Bladnoch. Crazy, crazy inconsistent distillery over the years. Not just about the quality of the product that's coming out of there, but whether or not product could come out of there. 1 minute it's open and they're managing to string things together, the next minute it's closed. But more recently, they've seen a wee bit of stability. playfulness with the expressions coming out. To my mind, a wee bit clumsy though. Going for luxury placement a wee bit too fast, a wee bit too early. That 10-year-old and the 11-year-old that came out a few years ago, 46.8%, I think it was, I'm not sure, 46.4 or something. Really good whiskies, really encouraging. Too much NAS, I think, too much non-age statement. Maybe it's the way it has to be. Some fantastic releases coming out. People really quite enthusiastic about it, but often just a wee bit pricey. Let's see where that goes. Position 36, Balblair, an Inverhouse distillery. There is another Inverhouse distillery that's a wee bit higher. In fact, I think, thinking about it, there are actually 3 Inverhouse distilleries in the top 25. Balblair's made it in at number 36, despite that clumsy, not very well received rebranding 2 or 3 years ago that seemed quite expensive at the time. It would seem that most other prices have caught up around the Balblair offering today, and people are starting to reconnect with it again. Maybe the quality is getting a wee bit better. I've got 1 or 2 Balblairs on the shelf and I'm enjoying it. I think there's still work to do there. Old Pulteney, and there's Inverhouse sibling distillery from Old Pulteney, making it just ahead at number 35. Is that because of the mass market availability of the 12-year-old? Is it because of the HUD art? Is it because of the 15, the 18, the high-age statement stuff? Certainly maybe a wee bit of nostalgia about how much people grew to love Old Pulteney based on the old 12-year-old and the old 17 and the old 21. Still enough people out there who love it for it to make number 35. Alistair Gray's gifted 5 Aqvavitae memberships. Alistair, thank you for your generosity. I hope those go to, those are well received by people willing to pick it up and enjoy having access to those emojis and keeping everything ad-free. Thank you, Alistair. Jimmy Legg is saying every distillery is capable of making fantastic spirit. If they do, it's only ruined later. That's right. It's not about what's made at the distilleries. It's how it's handled once it's mature. That's arguably the skill has to be just as precise there as it was in making the spirit in the first place. Number 34, Mortlach Diageo Distillery, the beast of Dufton, supposedly that really, really heavy, robust spirit that does so well in sherry casks, often European oak sherry casks as well. But honestly, it's just so weirdly handled every time it goes through a rebrand. It's just, you want to turn up at the place and say, do you even know about whiskey? Do you even know anything about this whiskey? Do you know who loves this whiskey? Do you know who wants to buy this whiskey? I'm sure that there's been wonderful success with these rebrands on Mortlach, and that's the reason that you have to keep rebranding it time after time. I'm sure it's been so successful. My goodness. The more tools that give you feedback, the better, because Mortlach is a belter of a distillery that's just been handled in such a clumsy way, it seems to me. This is only my opinion. When this moves over to Dramface, it'll be the opinion of much more people, of course. 33, Glenturret. Huge change from Glenturret in recent years. In 2020, we saw what they were going to bring as part of their new ownership under Lalique. We're all nervous. They are a bit pricey, let's be honest. It's a pricey range of products, but I don't think that many people have had complaints about the quality. Maybe been 1 or 2 oddball, kind of not quite there releases, but overall, it's been hugely well received. That 12-year-old Glenturret, pricey, yes, I think it's 65 quid, 70 quid now for a 12-year-old. But it's very, very, very good liquid. And today in 2024, since 2020, it's naturally presented and it's been well received. 33 is a decent placing for something that used to be a placeholder for famous grouse, let's be honest. 32. Oops, going in the wrong direction. 32. Linkwood. A bit like the Benromach we saw in at number 40. Linkwood is here, despite only having a single flora and fauna expression in limited markets. No, Linkwood is here because of the representation from independent bottlings, Signatory Vintage, Scotch Malt Whisky Society, Douglas Lane, and many, many, many more, bringing banging Linkwoods to the market. People love this stuff. A lighter than Mortlach, lighter than Benromach style of Speyside whiskey, but very, very classy too. Greg's Get Whiskey Guide is saying we need to see on the list mostly an independent bottling version distilleries such as Linkwood, Royal Brackla, Breval, Balmainic. Greg, it was almost like you'd asked. Justin Wan is celebrating seeing Linkwood in the list. Popular one, and Jimmy Legg has bought me a dram to say, oh, sorry, I did pick up that. But Jimmy, I did read it out, but I forgot to raise a glass and say thank you, buddy. Let's continue. Tomatin makes it in at number 31. A lot of people were asking where Tomatin was on the list after I shared it last year. Well, I can share with you now. Tomatin is at 31. I guarantee you if we'd done this list 5 years ago, Tomatin wouldn't have even made it into the top 40. So we're looking at Tomatin here with two brands under. We've got the Tomatin single malt, and we've also got Kuboken made there. Two completely different malt whiskies, made in a different way, sold under different brands. However, much like Springbank has Hazelburn and Longrow and Springbank, and much like other distilleries like Loch Lomond have Inchmurren and Inchmoan, and we're asking the question not about your favourite whiskey brands. We're asking the question, what is your favourite distillery? And it might be that Tomatin is placed here because people are loving Kuboken. And it might be what has been transformative about Tomatin in recent years about the Tomatin single malt as well. Good placing for Tomatin. Lots of possibility for it to climb even higher. In 30, we've got, yes, this is a brand, Anok is a brand, but of course we're talking about Knockdhu Distillery. Knockdhu is the highest placed Inverhouse. So we've seen Old Pulteney here, we've seen Balblair here. Balmainic doesn't get a mention, no spoilers there, there's no product from it. It's even quite rare to get Balmainic from an indie. And of course the other Inverhouse distillery would be Speyburn. Speyburn has been recently discovered by me on the channel, and I've raved about Speyburn 15, Speyburn 18 on the vPub. It deserves to be placed in here, I think, but it is not made at the highest position from Inverhouse is Knockdhu Anok. 29. Sorry, I'm going backwards again. 29. Glengoyne. We don't see Tamdhu in the top 40. Glengoyne is the only Ian MacLeod distillery that's in the top 40. It's been one of those distilleries that's been close to a lot of people's hearts for years. However, maybe it's just me, maybe it's just Aqvavitae channel, maybe it's just my community, maybe it's just my perspective. I have to be careful, but we seem to be talking about Glengoyne less. Just my take on it. Still, it's made it in the top 30 at position 29, and a lot of people still love it. One of the best distilleries on the planet that you can visit as well. 28. This is incredible. Daft Mill is in at 28. We're talking about a distillery that hardly anybody can even buy the liquid. How is this possible? There are enough people out there, certainly when this went out in 2023, there are enough people out there to have cast a vote on the philosophy of Daft Mill, on the uniqueness, the eccentricity, the liquid, the whole experience, the whole concept, the whole idea of that farm distillery out there in Fife. Incredible positioning on a whiskey that is objectively expensive and very, very difficult to get a hold of. I'm scared to predict what happens to the positioning of Daft Mill when this goes out to the wider whiskey community. It remains to be seen. But it made it into position 28 last year. 27 is Highland Park. I'm not giving any spoilers away when I tell you that this is the only distillery within the Edrington portfolio. So nothing from Glenrothes, nothing from Macallan. Highland Park has made it in at number 27. Still one of the loveliest malts, one of the most unique malts that's made in Scotland. Fabulous stuff. Why is it always better in the hands of an independent bottler? I don't want to say always, mostly. Let's say mostly. Certainly, they seem to have lost a lot of passionate followers through their recent official bottlings. We hear that there's another rebrand on the horizon. Let's see what happens there. Spending money just for the sake of money? Let's see. Position 26. Bowmore. Now, it's got a sibling in Lefroy that's made it much, much higher. But come on, Bowmore, one of Scotch whiskey's legends, one of the most highly regarded malt spirit producers on the planet, only can make it to position 26. It's a surprise to me, but I'll tell you why. It's abuse. The official releases from Bowmore are very rarely talked about on the vPub, because there's very rare that our ones comes along that's delicious enough for me to even bother my backside about. A few years ago, that Atlantic sea salt blew me away. It just reminded me about how great Bowmore could actually be. But sorry, they're number one, they're non-age statements, they're 10-year-old, they're 15, they're 18, they're just poor, poor, poor whiskies. Wonderful malt whiskey made at the distillery, rendered insipid by the official releases, and I'm sorry to be so brutal, but I think that's the reason why it can only make it to 26. So there we go. I do have some takeaways here, and I'm going to share those with you in a second before we round out tonight, and I can share with you all how you can get involved. Graham Fraser is saying worm tubs definitely rule tonight. It's an interesting one. We should take the worm tub distilleries and see him. That's a takeaway that I should have put a bit of effort into, Graham. That's a good one. It's a canny spot. Fantastic. James DeGiulio, fantastic. James bought me a dram. My distillery, Spring Bunaladdie. Well, you've got the top three. You've got Springbank at number 1, Bunnahabhain at number 2, and Brookladdie at number 3. I think I'm right in remembering that. So let's finish off the last of my Brookladdie, and I'm going to pour a wee dram in anticipation of something further down the line. Cheers, James. It's Graham Young in. I don't know if he's in tonight, but I'm going to open a bottle from my pal Graham Young. I was on a chat recently to my pal over in Canada, Rob from Whiskey in the Six. Rob from Whiskey in the Six collaborates regularly with Jeremy from Sipper Social Club, and they put out together content on their own channels, of course, but they also get together and do the Whiskey Rant podcast. I loved participating and collaborating with them last year to do a rant podcast. We focused mostly on the Online Scotch Whisky Wars last year. A great session. Loved to chat with them. So you can catch that on Sipper Social Club from last year, and Whiskey in the Six, Whiskey Rant podcast with Aqvavitae, of course. But he was raving about this. This was a gift to me, Canadian whiskey. Oh, come on, let's that lovely noise. Canadian whiskey, Macaloney's, from British Columbia. Macaloney's Island Distillery, as it's called now. This is the single cask selection, Washington Peat. So this isn't, if you remember, one of the point from the Peat Fest of last year was why is everybody being supported by Scottish peat? That can't endure. People need to use local peat. This is Washington Peat. The ABV on this is 46% ABV, but I think it's obviously reduced. It is a single cask. Canadian Island peated single malt whiskey and European Moscatel casks, bottled in May 2023. Looks to have, I think it's Gordon Macaloney. Is it Gordon or Graham Macaloney? I can't remember. Looks to have his signature on the bottle here. But Rob at Whiskey in the Six was raving about this. And he wanted me to hop on the Whiskey Rant podcast with him. And we could share this as we talked about various topics in whiskey. Hopefully that's coming up soon. Oh my goodness, there's a lot of peat on this. It's peatier than expected. Not outdoor cold peat, not beach smoke peat, not iodine and seaweed and that kind of peat. No. A bit more earthy, maybe a wee bit closer to a kind of barbecue, savoury, salty, yes, but a savoury, much more of a smoked meat peat. Wow. Anyway, you wanted to talk about this, but you wanted me not to uncork it. You wanted this to be open. You wanted the bottle to get some air, so that by the time that we were sipping it together, the bottle's been open for a little while. Cheers, everyone. Graham Young, thank you very much for your generosity of this gift. I've had it there for a wee while, waiting on the right moment to open it. Seems like tonight's as good a moment as any. Cheers, everyone. Well, you don't need to worry. I think sometimes about designing or worrying about provenance in whiskey. It seems to be, despite the fact that Macaloney's he's a Scotsman, he's probably making this in a Scottish style, but he's somehow managed to make a product in the west coast of Canada that's very much an homage to Scotch, maybe, from what I can pick up, that doesn't really taste like Scotch. It tastes different. There's no age on this. It doesn't taste particularly raw or young, but at the same time, it does have a lot of kind of edges and vibrance about it. It doesn't taste particularly mature either. It's got bottle number on it. If it's a single cask, surely they would put an age on it. Maybe they just put out a lot of single casks. Quite fruity. Citrus, lemon, honey, quite a bit of honey. Lots of peat smoke, heaps of peat smoke. Really is one for the peat freaks. A Canadian whiskey that's this heavily peated. Interestingly, that they're using peat that's much more local to them as well. Of course, they're in West Canada. This is from Washington. Quite tasty stuff, quite tasty stuff. So let me share with you some of my takeaways now that I've shared the top 40 with you. Some observations. I wish I'd used the worm tub one, I have to be honest. Okay, what was 41, says Jimmy Chance. See? You just want to know, don't you? Let's go through the takeaways first. All 8 of the currently available operating Islay distilleries. There's nothing from Arnaho yet. There's nothing being made at Port Ellen yet. All 8 of the current Islay distilleries are inside the top 40. That's interesting to me. 9, somebody brought this up. Somebody was asking, Alistair Gray, I think it was asking about the presence of Speyside distilleries. Despite being one of them, it's certainly the most concentrated region in Scotland, given the amount of distilleries in that small size. There are more Highland distilleries than there are Speyside distilleries today. But only 9 out of the 50 make it inside the top 40. Remember that we're speaking about a maximum size of 141 distilleries. You would expect that number, that Speyside number, to be higher. There is decent representation in here from Benromach, Aberlour, Balvenie, Mortlach, Linkwood, Knockdhu, Glenfarclas, Craigellachie and Glenallachie. But that's the 9. I think Speyside could be doing better. And I think it's because, as I stand in front of you in 2024, it's because of the corporate ownership there. Diageo are punching there. They're doing quite well despite everything. 9 out of 11 island distilleries are in the top 40. The Western Highlands and the Islands are knocking it out of the park with enthusiasts. Crazy thing. When I talk about that provenance there, when I talk about the whiskey taking care of itself, so much of it is about that place. I'm not talking about terroir. I'm not talking about where the barley's grown or anything. I'm talking about where the distillery makes its whiskey. The Western Isles, the islands, that coastal element seems to do very well. Macaloney's in the glass, backing that up too. Well, it's a Canadian, of course, but that's interesting to me. Avenjarric and Harris are the only ones that are not in the top 40 yet. But 9 out of 11, that's quite a big participation. There's only one lowland distillery in the top 40, and that's Daftmill. It's crazy to me, but it's encouraging. We have to remember that it wasn't so long ago we only had Auchentoshan and Glenkinchie. And at some points in the past, there's only been one lowland distillery in operation. Now, we have a lot more. I think we're in the order of, I don't know, I counted it recently. I think we've got 20 odd lowland distilleries now. An explosion of distilleries in Fife, Dumfries and Galloway, the Borders. There's just so much more to choose from. There's lots and lots of progress possible from the lowlands. But right now, we've only got Daftmill in the top 40. Incredible. 4 new distilleries in the top 40. I've got new in quotation marks there because we're talking about not so new as well. We're talking about Daftmill, Kilchoman, and we're talking about Kilkerran, Glengyle. But the fourth is Ardnamurchan. Not only is it in the top 40, but it's at number 4. That bodes so well for the future. So think of Isle of Rassay, think of Lag, think of many, many more new distilleries, all the distilleries out there in Fife. There's so much opportunity and potential for us as enthusiasts, and also for them to progress in our, I guess, our preferences. How about the big 6? Some people say the big 4, big 5, big 6. Let's look at the big 6 and beyond and see how they did in the top 40. How are they performing? The Diageo, Pernod Ricard, Beam Suntory. Let's see. It's not great. Is anyone going to be surprised by this? Diageo, 30 distilleries, only managed 7, and they're punching. They're doing much better than their peers. Chivas is Pernod Ricard, of course, Chivas Brothers. Ownership of 12 distilleries can only get Aberlour in the top 40. That's pitiful. That's abuse. That is poor, poor, poor. And it's heartbreaking for some of those distilleries. Scapa, Glenlivet, Longmorn, Glentochers. I could go on and on and on. Wonderful distilleries that are resplendent from independent bottlers. And from official releases, for some reason, poor. Edrington, Highland Park, no Macallan, no Glenrothes. Edrington's only managed 1 entry with Highland Park. Same as Diageo, about a quarter. Grant's about a quarter as well. Only Balvenie have made it in for them. Beam Suntory, 2 out of 5. Lefroy and Bemore making it in there. Dewar's, that's a surprise to me. Dewar's are doing great things. I would love to see Altmore making it into the top 40. Craigellachie has made it. I think Aberfeldy is a wee bit watered down and neutered. I think it could be so much better. Think of Royal Brackla. It's getting better. It's starting to get interest. It's a wee bit pricey. I think there's opportunities there for Dewar's. Brown-Forman, Glendronach, and I think it's on the downward trend as well. Glenglassaugh has come to us. They've done a decent job with those Glenglassaugh bottlings, but it's odd, isn't it? 45%. It's just an odd choice. Maybe it's natural, but they're not telling us it's natural, that kind of thing. I think they could do better. Rachel Barry probably would love to have it be a lot better as well, but I know that, she's probably doing what she can. She's done a great job with Glenglassaugh. Let's see what happens at Glendronach. Let's see what happens at Benromach. For me, bit insipid, and Glendronach is on the way down. White Mackay is the worst offender here. 4 distilleries under their remit. Tamnavulin, Fettercairn, Dalmore and Jura, none of them making it into the top 40. None of them. So even when we extend it to a list of top 40, no White and Mackay distilleries break it. To me, the only distillery in their portfolio that's got a chance of breaking it into the top 40 would be Fettercairn. Huge strides made. Huge progress at Fettercairn. Much, much better quality spirit coming out. Certainly much more of an eye on natural whiskey. Let's see who are punching. Let's see who are doing better than we might otherwise imagine. CVH used to be Burn Stewart, then it was Distell. Nowadays we know them as CVH. Their entire portfolio, Deanston, Tobermory, and Bunnahabhain, are not only in the top 40, but they're in the top 10. Natural forward, natural first, natural whiskey, a good solid core range, reasonable prices. They're quite happy to charge a wee bit more for the mature stuff, especially from Bunnahabhain, and those special editions are a bit pricey as well. The distillery bottlings are far too pricey, but the core range is keeping them firmly on our radar. Inverhouse doing very well with 3 out of 5 distilleries that were mentioned there. Balblair, Old Pulteney, and of course Annoch. It just leaves out Speyburn and Balmainach. Understandably, I think there's room for Speyburn to come in there and play as well. Loch Lomond, they only own 2 distilleries with Glen Scotia and Loch Lomond, but Glen Scotia is number 5, I think, and Loch Lomond at number 17, if my memory serves me well. They're doing okay. J&A Mitchell, of course, they're kicking out of the park with positions number 6 and number 1 at Glengyle and Springbank. No surprises there. The ones that are bringing us the honest integrity forward stuff. Jimmy Jazz, here you go. A wee peek under the hood of the ones floating just outside the top 40. Number 41, Isle of Rassay, almost broken through. A new distillery getting better all the time, almost breaking through. Number 42, one of those ignored distilleries from Pernod Ricard, that fruit bomb that is the Speyside Glentochers. Again, poor official bottlings, rare official bottlings, independent bottlings, resplendent. Glenmurray, bargain basement oftentimes. We sometimes neglect it, we sometimes forget how good Glenmurray can actually be, but not everyone. It's just outside the top 40, making it in at position 43. Glenmorangie, once upon a time a sibling of Glenmurray, 44, position 44, one of the best-selling malts in the UK, one of the best-selling malts in the Europe and globally, honestly speaking. Glenmorangie makes it in at 44. Maybe not based on their 10-year-old. I am a bit of a fan of the 10-year-old, if I'm honest. That pineapple, tropical fruit note that comes across in the 10, despite it being at 40% domestically, still a good malt whiskey, makes it in at 44. Tamdhu, Glengoyne's stablemate, only makes it in at 45, despite fantastic releases from Tamdhu, such as their age statement range is always very well received, but the batch strength specifically. I think the problem with Tamdhu tends to be price. It is what it is. They're just hovering outside the list. Ardmore. Independent bottlers, independent bottlers, independent bottlers, the theme here, right? The only reason that we know and engage and love and understand Ardmore as well as we do is because of those indies, and that's enough to get it into 46. 47, I imagine, I hope that Glengarry will climb 48% ABV, whether it's a non-age statement 1797 founders or the 12-year-old. The 12-year-old was in contention for being Whiskey of the Year for me. The fact it was heavily coloured, or let's say the fact that it was coloured or no declaration about how much colour they are potentially adding, it put me off. Still a great whiskey. 47. Speyburn is at 48. I've said many, many things about Speyburn. Fantastic value, fantastic, delicious whiskey, whether it's the 15 or the 18-year-old. The younger stuff, the 10-year-old and the non-age statement, I'm not so fussed about. I think it's a wee bit insipid. I think it needs a wee bit more age and a wee bit more cask spirit balance to do well. But Speyburn at 48. Macallan actually makes it into the list. My goodness, at 49. Surprised about that, but there's enough love still out there for Macallan, but I guarantee you that they are on the downward trend. If we'd have done this 5 or so years ago, 10 years ago and beyond, they would have been higher and higher and higher up. Still, by the skin of their teeth, they're hanging on to the top 50, but with 49. And coming in at number 50 is another Diageo distillery, only available through Flora and Fauna, much like the Benromach and Linkwood. We've got Blair Athol. I suggest to you once more that that is firmly in place because of the independent bottlers. Whiskey with Molly Ben has gifted 5 Aqvavitae memberships, as has Michael from Inverurie Whisky Shop. Guys, thank you very much for your generosity. I hope it goes into good hands. Thank you all so much for your support. Wow, that Macaloney's is super smoky. I suffer from peat blight, right? Because sometimes I don't detect smoke and peat flavours in whiskey, depending on what I've been drinking and things. But it's really quite a peat bomb tonight. It really is. All right, not too much to be getting on with. But before somebody asks, somebody's going to say, okay, what's number 51? I'll tell you what's number 51. I've shared with you top 50, and before someone asks, just out of tongue-in-cheek, Altmore. I hope it goes a wee bit higher. I probably think not, because if just discontinued the 12-year-old Foggy Moss, right? Still, fantastic whiskey, deserves to be in the mix. So, my predictions of things that will climb. Altmore isn't in there, but Lag is in there. I think Lag is one of the most compelling new distillates to come on the scene. I think it's fabulous stuff, and I think it's going to go from strength to strength. Speyburn we've talked about loudly on the vPub. Surprised it's not there. When it goes out into the bigger community, it might struggle a wee bit, Speyburn. Let's see, Glengarry, I imagine, as I've already talked about, should make it in there. And Isle of Rassay is almost there, just outside. Maybe when it goes out into the wider community, Rassay can make it into the mix as well. Dornoch suffers from not enough people tasting the liquid there, but there's plans afoot for that to climb as well. If Daftmill can make it in at the scale that they are, there's an opportunity for Dornoch. And then the other one that I've decided to throw in the mix there is, of course, that one that we love to drink through Indies at Ardmore. Fantastic fruity and smoky style from the Highlands. Of course, there's Ardlair as well, which is unpeated from Ardmore too. Look out for that. Can be wonderful to drink too. I think that there's an argument that thanks to independent bottlers, Ardmore could make it in there too. So where do we go now? Well, let me check. Let me have a quick look at the state of play. Our mechanic has been busy working away in the background, and I just want to see where we're at. If I can put a link in for this, it is live. There is a button on there. If I click that button, you can participate. Everybody can participate from now. Please join me in celebrating Dramface's 2 years. We're going to officially launch this now. I'll replace Gav's link, and ask everyone to just open a wee browser, go and bookmark this if you can. Hopefully that'll pin. That will take you directly to the page with kind of tell you where we're at right now. I'll share the details I've shared with you tonight, but it's going to do it with a Dramface feel and a Dramface branding. But from here on in and going forward, this is Dramface's project now. It's over to them. It's over to everyone, the entire team there. Of course, I'm part of that team. Dramface is my site, okay? Full disclosure, yes. But there's much more people involved. There's much more opinion. It's kind of on the Aqvavitae channel. I get to just do what I want to do and just please myself. In the Dramface space, I'm working as part of a team, and it's a pleasure and a privilege. It really is. That's going to hopefully do quite well over there. People are going to enjoy participating in this stuff. Remember, I have to keep saying this. You're not only voting once. You can vote tonight and wake up tomorrow morning and change your mind. Once it gets to 1,000 respondents, once 1,000 people respond, Dramface will immediately release the update. So you're not going from what my data was from 707 respondents in 2023. You'll now be going with a minimum of 1,000 respondents on Dramface. It's just a matter of time. From the Dramface members alone, we were able to get, I didn't actually check it, I should have checked it. We were able to get about 80 or 90 just polling the Dramface, no, 112 respondents, sorry, just from polling the Dramface members. What's the Dramface members? That's the people who pay for Dramface. It's the cost of a magazine, $3.99 a month. You sign up and you get daily content coming out. Every weekday, every workday, daily content dropping from Dramface with occasional weekend features too. I think it's unique. I think there's nothing else out there like Dramface right now. We're going to continue to try and build the value proposition there thanks to those members. They get first bite at this. Their votes are already in. So we're already more than 10% of the way there. As soon as we hit 1,000, whether it's this weekend, next week, at some point in the future, we'll update and we'll tell everyone that there's new data out there. We'll also monitor who's moved up and who's moved down and try and keep track of that as well. Listen, we're only limited by our own imagination what we can do with this thing. And I need to move away from the kind of worry of that it's a negative thing, that it's an arrogant thing. Who are we to judge who's the best distilleries and things? I'm sorry, but we're consumers. And that's a product that is consumed. And we have a right to put together platforms and models like this to give feedback to an industry, to give feedback to other people coming in as consumers, as enthusiasts, and to be honest about this, but not do it in a very, very kind of opinionated, individualistic way, but to do it on a much wider way. I can try and find consensus, groupthink, hive mind, crowdsourced, however you want to label this thing. Every now and again, whether it's quarterly, every 6 months, annually, I don't know what's going to work in the Dramface space. Dramface will continue to take snapshots and update the standing for everyone. it's heartbreaking for me to give this up and give it on to somebody, but I know it's the right thing to do. But it'd be amazing to do an annual Aqvavitae barfly gathering and say, oh, the top 40 this year is that, and just do this thing. But it's bigger than one voice. It's bigger than one channel, I think. And a lot of people did consider that when I did it, it was Aqvavitae themed. It was kind of an echo chamber type thing, or I would be influencing my own community, and I would. And I'm not sure that that was happening, because you're all grown-ups with your own opinions and takes on things, whether or not you agree with me. However, if I'm not in charge of it anymore, that's not even on the discussion table, is it? It just takes it away. Nobody needs to even talk about that anymore. It's much bigger. Anyone can participate. I hope you've enjoyed that tonight. I hope that we can all celebrate the fact that Dramface has been going for 2 years and it's been a tremendous success thanks to your reception and your support. Happy birthday, Dramface. Cheers. Thanks to all the writers. Thanks to the team that helped me behind the scenes. Thanks to the imagination, the passion, the quality, more than anything, the kind of tight, mutually supportive network that's built there in order to create such a thing. It might not last forever, honestly speaking, but while it's there, let's see how far we can take it. I'm going to pour this for the quiz tonight. I've got one more Glencairn here that's clean, and I wasn't fair to this last week. This is Deanston's Organic. I didn't react too much to this. I think it was just a neck pour, of course it was, and I was a wee bit worried that it was all about the cask on this one. This is their 2021-year-old organic release. This is not about organic whiskey. The 14-year-old organic, the 15-year-old, arguably the 17-year-old, I didn't really try too much. They were all very pure expressions of Deanston. This is not that. This is much more cask forward. But look at this. I've been sharing this one in the last week too. Please, no, it's not all me drinking this. I'm generous with my whiskies and I pour it for folk when they come round. I do pour wee samples and take it out to folk as well. This has turned out to be a delectable, delicious sherry cask whiskey. Just superb. If this profile is your thing. So cooked raisins and currants and fruit and booze and even after that really peaty, smoky Macaloney's. Very, very glad to have it. Again, like the Bruichladdich 18, like a few other whiskies that pop up over the course of the year on the vPub, it is a wee bit pricey at £155. But remember, we're speaking about expensive to produce organic whiskey. It's difficult, but also it's 21 years old. 50.9% ABV, not quite cask strength, but close. I think it has been reduced. I'm not sure. Regardless, the ABV is good. How much would we have to pay for this quality of whiskey with a different brand on it? Deanston, well done. It's an absolute banger. It was a neck pour last week, and I did caveat it as that, but this is fabulous whiskey. Fabulous stuff. Jean Kelly's joined the Aqvavitae Barflies as well. Jean, thank you very much for stepping up to support me as a patron as well. I'm going to send a wee message to you over the weekend to say thank you and welcome you into the Patreon community. That Patreon community has built the Aqvavitae channel. It sustains me. That Patreon community has built the Online Scotch Whisky Awards in collaboration with Ralphie, of course. That Patreon community also founded Dramface. Dramface is standing on its own 2 feet now. It pays for itself thanks to the membership support, as I explained. But my Patreon community gave birth to all of these things. I'll never tire of thanking my patrons. You're genuinely beautiful whiskey folk. Thank you all. Thank you for listening to me this evening. I now hand it over to Dramface, and I wish them the very, very best. Let's see how things are going. Are people participating in that? People are in live right now voting, and that's ticking up. So I checked at 112. Click on it now. It's 140. People are voting live now. Hopefully it's working for you. Hopefully you're going to have fun with that. I can't wait to see where you place everything. Whiskey with Molly saying, how about Old Perth? The PX release is amazing. I agree with you. Old Perth is one of the treasures out there, a wee bit like the Port Askig range. One of those brands out there in Scotch whisky that's just under the radar, but the trouble with it is probably access. We've got it in the UK and Europe. Maybe it's in the States, I don't know. It's obviously from Morrison Mackay, isn't it? Or Morrison Distillers, are they now? Great stuff. I've got Old Perth here and I'm loving it. The cast strength sherry cask I've got here, it's fantastic. It can't fit in the top 40, Ben, because it's a brand, but I think you're just asking about when maybe I was talking about a sherry cask product. Easy to recommend, great value. Jimmy Legacy, can you tell us how many supporters Dramface has? How do you mean, or how many members it has? I could. I can't tell you the last time I checked. What I do have to say is that we are, if you'd step forward to support Dramface as a member, we've not worked out what we can give you back yet. It's a wee bit like patrons for me and Aqvavitae. I do the monthly lock-in Sunday night, by the way, for all my patrons out there. Lock-in is penciled in for Sunday night this week, 9 o'clock Sunday night, maybe 9:45. I'll let you know on Patreon. It's difficult to work out what's good and what we can give you back. So we try and give you early access to the podcast, early access to wee projects like this. Little things. We need to work out a way that's easy to admin, easy to honour, a way to thank the people that step forward. The Dramface membership floats typically between, if I was to guess, 150 and 200 supporters. Although all of the team get free membership, so they don't really count. So that skews it a little bit. It's been a wee while since I've gone in and checked. The most important thing is that Dramface pays for everything, pays for itself to the point that the last time I had to inject any money into Dramface was the month that we launched it. The last time I personally put any investment into Dramface was February 2022, 2 years ago. People see a value in it and they step forward. Lowlander is saying, did you see the news about the owner of Bimber and Dunfield Distillery? I did, Lowlander, I did. I'm not going to comment on it. It's shocking, it's scary, it's a wee bit frightening. Yeah, I hope that Dunfield, Bimber, all the positively contributing aspects that came of those projects maintain and endure, and the livelihoods of the people that are involved. Yeah, it's a difficult thing. Just got in, says Access to Scotch. Good to welcome you, buddy. He says, so glad I can join the chat and quiz at the end. You are in time for the quiz at the end. We're Dramface members, says Jimmy Legg, because we don't want to lose it. We don't need any more than its continued existence. And Graham Young is in here as well. Bought me a wee dram with no comment or whatever. But Jimmy, thank you very much for that thought. I think that when we talk about trying to reward people, I think that's right. A lot of people step up to support and they're just paying for the content that they appreciate and they want it to endure, and that's why they support, and that's why they support me on Patreon too. But I think it makes us feel good when we can give them wee things that make them feel that they are appreciated, such as that dram, Jimmy. Thank you very much. All right. Quiz at the end. Listen, more than 300 of you in, more than 400 of you in at some points tonight. I'm going to chapter mark everything so that people picking up on the replay will be able to pick it up at a much faster pace, but I appreciate hanging out with you at a slower pace on a Thursday evening. Thank you. Please stay for a wee bit of fun for the quiz at the end. For those of you an hour ahead in Europe, understand you're going to need to slink off. You've got responsibilities on a Friday, all of that. But if you can relax a wee bit, if you've got a wee bit left in the glass, see how you got on with the quiz at the end. Remember, we've been doing this fun thing with the monkey, right? We've been just doing a random. I'm going to try and give my monkey some ABCs tonight. I'm going to go A, B, C, A, C, C, B, A, C, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then A at the end. Let's go. Now, of course, I've put it together, so I could be cheating. I really don't have a memory like that. So I've just chosen 3 random ABCs, and that's almost like entering a monkey into the race. And you can do that too. The pass mark is always 5. We're just trying to get to 5. Should be easy for you to do that tonight. I'm very mindful that in 2024, there's not been a whole lot of 10 out of 10 celebration. It's been quite sparse. But that hasn't played into me putting this quiz together tonight. I guarantee you it will be a challenge. It will be tough. So raise this glass as we go into the last thing to do for the vPub on the 15th of February and say good luck with the quiz at the end, everyone. Cheers. Kyle Taylor is taking an interesting strategy, saying I'm going to go with a monkey of all C's. So C, 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 C. So that's interesting, Kyle. Let's see how that works out. Kyle Taylor. Let's see how that works. Andrew Butler is in saying it's Zhang, the Capuchin's turn tonight. Fantastic, Andrew. A magic. You've got a wee, whether it's a monkey or a chimpanzee or whatever it is you're using, wonderful stuff. Dave Barnes is saying ready. Let's go. Good luck, everyone. It's multiple choice. Only share your scores if you want to. If you're struggling, follow the crowd, but be careful which of the crowd you follow. Question 1. Which of these distilleries was one of only 4 to be opened between the years of 1976 and 2005? Only 4 distilleries were opened in that, well, what's that, close to 30 years, 29 years. Only 4 distilleries were opened in that window. The doldrums of Scotch whisky. Which of these was opened in that window? A, Isle of Arran, of course I'm speaking about Lochranza. B, Speyside, or C, Kilchoman. Was Arran, Speyside, or Kilchoman opened between the years of 76 and 2005? One of the 4 distilleries. Horsham is saying it should be easy to pass this evening. Multi-mission has entered the chat. Is Menno still in here? He's up a wee bit late tonight. If he is, it would be great to have Menno in. The superstar asshat himself, Lord asshat extraordinaire. The asshat is the final question in the vPub quiz at the end, and deliberately designed to be awkward. Everybody's caught me out on this one. Excess to Scotch is already claiming a 1 out of 1. Everybody knows that all of these is a freebie. Nobody goes home with a donut in tonight's quiz. Every one of these were founded between the years of 76 and 2005. Arran, Lochranza, 1995. Speyside, 1990. Kilchoman, 2005. The other one would be Daffmill, of course. Okay, question 2. 8 Doors Distillery runs a scheme called the 874 Club, named after what? It's named after the distance between A, John O'Groats and Land's End, the distance between B, John O'Groats and London, or C, the distance between John O'Groats and Lizard Point. Now, is Ryan Sutherland still in? He's a hard-working guy, so probably he's got a shift to put in the morning. Glengyle 2, right. Hey, Jimmy, that's a point, actually. Glengyle was 2004, so could that be 5? Yeah, you're quite right. Did I discount Daffmill or something because it was after Kilchoman? Don't know what I've done there. It's actually 5 for question 1. So everybody gets a freebie anyway. Who is John O'Groats? I guess. So John O'Groats is where the 8 Doors Distillery is located. It is the most northerly point on the British mainland. A monkey would know this, says Mike Molasses. Good to see you, Mike. You're spot on. We are, if Glengyle, then also Bruichladdich. Bruichladdich was like Ardbeg and other distilleries that were kind of brought back to life rather than opened. Spot on for those of you that have said A quite rightly. It is 874 miles apparently between John O'Groats and Land's End, which is the entire length of Great Britain, the island of Great Britain. Lizard Point is the furthest southerly point, of course, but it is 874 miles to Land's End. Question 3. My chimpanzee got that one wrong. Question 3. In the context of Scotch malt whisky, Old Teddy and Young Teddy are what? A. Old Teddy and Young Teddy are the stills at Oban Distillery. B. They are two expressions of Oban single malt. Or C. They are two long-standing employees of Oban Distillery. Old Teddy and Young Teddy are what? Stills at Oban, expressions of Oban single malt, or employees of Oban. Jimmy Leg 2 for 2, good stuff. Pete Head is, and Frank, always great to welcome you, my friend. I hope you're doing well. Looking forward to the next time I'll see your smiling face, my friend. Falsgraph is saying A or C, voting for A. Wow. Wow. Oh my goodness. Should there have been a banana skin in this? I can't have this. Whiskey with Molly saying C, Jerry Miller C, Sid Martin C, C and Newman C. Nicholas is saying B. His crazy smiling face is saying Jimmy, yes. Edward took exception. Yeah. I'm worried about this. Correcting. C, says Pedro. Good. Correct. Please correct Pedro. Pedro's now going with C. Good. Matt Horsham is saying A. Molasses Mike is saying C. Kyle Taylor is saying wait. B. Good stuff, Kyle. Excellent. Peter Box is saying B. Excellent, Peter. Andrew Pierce is saying I had no idea. A sounded right, but not changing. Change, Andy. Change now. Change now. The stills at Oban Distillery are not Old Teddy and Young Teddy. Old Teddy and Young Teddy are expressions, commemorative expressions released by Oban Distillery to commemorate two long-standing employees of Oban Distillery. B and C were both right. I don't know what the stills at Oban are called. Maybe if they are potentially called Old Teddy and Young Teddy, I highly doubt it, but you can claim a point for it. But no, it's either Old Teddy and Young Teddy are two special editions from Oban, and they are commemorating. The third generation is now in place, so I guess I don't think his name is Teddy, but they're going to 3 generations of the same family: grandfather, father, and son. Julian Rickman is saying the barflies are not for changing. Well, I tried. I would like this to be a good quiz tonight. If it's going to be hard, I want it to be hard in the second half, not in question 3. Let's roll on to question 4. Glenmorangie and Ardbeg are the only 2 distilleries currently in Scotland owned by Louis Vuitton Moët Hennessy. But until 2008, they had another. Which distillery was that? It was A, Glentochers and Speyside, B, Glenallachie and Speyside, or C, Glenmurray and Speyside. Which Glen from Speyside did Louis Vuitton Moët Hennessy own up until 2008? Glentochers, Glenallachie, or Glenmurray? My chimpanzee is 2 for 3. Fantastic. He's quite happy right now. All the barflies in agreement for this one. Terrific stuff. Kyle Taylor. C. he gets his first point if this is the case. Yes, Glenmurray. It was sold to La Martiniquais in 2008. It was seen to be not a good fit for the potentially, I don't know, more culty, more premium brands of Glenmorangie and Ardbeg. I'm not sure. It's a shame. Hopefully Glenmurray will go on from strength to strength. But for the last 16 years, it's been owned by Lamartine Keys. I only know this one because the German importer is 2 villages from me, says Falsgraf. However you know it, buddy. Question 5, Graham Fraser's picture questions, of course. I have to say this is a tricky one tonight. Now, that chimney on the left is not leaning. It's not the leaning smokestack of Speyside. No, that is just a condition of the lens there. But it's going to be a tricky one tonight, the picture question. So study it for a little while, have a look at it, and I'll ask you which distillery we're looking for. We're either looking at A, Strathmill, B, Linkwood, or C, Glentorkers. Take that, monkey. 2 for 5. The monkey's starting to sweat a little. Andrew is certainly doing well on a 4 out of 4. His monkey not so well on 1 out of 4. Whiskey from the Vegetable, Colin, good to see you, 4 out of 4. Ben, Whiskey with Molly, always doing well, 4 out of 4. C.A. Newman, wonder if that's the first time I've welcomed you in on a 4 out of 4. Terrific stuff, great performance. Look, Mikey Hayes here tonight as well. Mikey, so good to see you. I don't even mind that you've slipped up somewhere with a 3 out of 4, buddy. It's just great to welcome you. Daisy Leland is here as well. Superb, 4 out of 4, she's saying. 2 out of 4 for the monkey. Good stuff, Daisy. Greg's Whiskey Guide in Paris, Graham Fraser, Bruce Bernard, all on 4 out of 4, and Roy Overmere over in Norway. Where's Roy? 3 out of 4. Okay, I can tell you that we are looking at, and I guess the only thing to give it away is those copper-topped cupolas or pagodas, Doig's ventilators. The twin pagodas in the background there, we're looking at Strathmill, one of Diageo's under the radar distilleries. Probably the only one that's lesser known than Strathmill was Glen Spey, perhaps. Thanks for the picture, Graham. Hard one tonight. I'm not sure I would have got that one. I might, if given the multiple choice, I would have gone for it because of the pagoda roofs in the background. But yeah, tricky one. Question 6. Things are going to get tougher now. Which distillery had to change its branding after a run-in with the SWA in 2022? Which distillery was forced to change its branding after a run-in with the SWA in 2022? A. Glenora Distillery in Nova Scotia. B. Shelter Point Distillery in British Columbia. Or C. Macaloney's Island Distillery in British Columbia. 3 Canadian distilleries. But I'm asking you which one was forced to change its branding after a run-in with the Scotch Whisky Association. The Scotch Whisky Association serves to protect the interests of Scotch whisky, stopping fakes, stopping people passing other whiskies or maybe even liquids that are not a whisky off as Scotch. And they tend to fight legal battles all over the place. But they had a run-in recently with a Canadian producer. That was either A. Glenora, B. Shelter Point, or C. Macaloney's. Mikey Hayes saying C, go for the crowd. Mr. Dura 500 is shouting A, exclamation mark. That looks like a new name, Mr. Dura 500. Welcome to the vPub. Davy Nichol is also saying A. I think that might be a new name, Davy. Black Fen is saying A, and Jerry Miller is saying C. Rick Johnson is saying C, but why a banana skin? Well, because Glenora Distillery had a run-in with the SWA, but it was back in the early 2000s based on a product launched in 1999. The banana skin is there for the people who don't read the question to read 2022. Macaloney's Caledonian had to be renamed Macaloney's Island Distillery. So for those of you that quite rightly pointed out C and dodged the banana skin, you take a point from question 6. I could have been awkward in there, and I could have put in a High Coast the Box distillery thing. There's a few other ones I could have picked out, but yeah, Shelter Point was just in there as a red herring. Question 7. Which of these whiskies are made at a distillery where the stills are located a full 2.5 miles from where the mash room and the fermentation takes place? So these stills are 2.5 miles away from where they mash and ferment. A, I'm talking about Cotswolds Distillery. B, I'm talking about Filey Bay. Sorry, I'm talking about whiskies. Sorry, which of these whiskies are made? Cotswolds is a distillery and a whiskey. Filey Bay is a whiskey made at Spirit of Yorkshire. And the Lakes is obviously the Lakes Distillery. They make various whiskies, brands from that distillery. A, Cotswolds. B, Filey Bay. C, the Lakes. So distillation is carried out a full 2.5 miles away from where they mash and ferment. If it helps you in this one, I'll tell you it's a farm distillery. A lot of the barley is taken, in fact, I believe maybe even all of the barley. I'm not 100% sure. They do have floor maltings in place, if that helps a little bit too. There's a brewery on site, not where they distill, but where they mash and ferment. There's also a brewery. Really crowd, says Klaus Falsgraf. Do you know, like saying, I've never heard of this. It sounds impossible. Unpossible, it's actually written. Yeah, they must, unless there's a very, very long pipe, which I doubt, they must have to tanker down the wash. I suspect they do it because of the brewery that's on site. I'm talking about Spirit of Yorkshire Distillery, who make Filey Bay whiskey. The answer here is B. The mash room and the fermentation room is very, very close to, I guess it maybe even shares the mashing and fermentation with the brewery, but the wash is then transported down for distillation a full 2.5 miles away, something I only discovered this week. So if you answered B, you've got a point as we roll into question 8. Which distillery is the furthest north in the lowlands? So the lowlands, obviously that lower part of Scotland. I'm just going to ask you which of these distilleries are coming up now is the furthest north. A, Aberargie, B, Kingsbarns, or C, Lindores Abbey. See if I'm wanting somebody to get 10 out of 10 tonight. I'm not being fair about it because these are not easy questions. Desi has gone 5 out of 7 for herself, and the monkey is also on 5 out of 7. Incredible. I've not been keeping score of the last two. Let's flick back quickly and see how we're doing. I just need number 6 as well. I've got a C. Kyle Taylor's done well on that one. And we've got a B. Kyle Taylor's on 2. My monkey's on 3. And a B. My monkey's on 4. Oh my goodness. Which is the furthest north out of these 3? Aberargie, Kingsbarns, or Lindores Abbey? I was at a tasting this week, hosted by Lindores, and they mentioned that they were the furthest north in the Lowlands Distillery of the Lowlands Distilleries. So it's Lindores Abbey is what I was looking for. Molasses is in crowdsourcing for C. Well done indeed. Terrific. My monkey doesn't score, but Kyle Taylor's does. So he's on 3. Terrific stuff. Well done, everyone. Is there still somebody on 8 out of 8? Come on, tell me that somebody's still holding it together. Question 9, penultimate question. Which of these sister distilleries, occupying the same site, once operated the same crew, operating each distillery 6 months of the year? So this crew would operate a distillery for 6 months, shut it down and move to the other distillery for 6 months, shut it down and move back in 6 months. And that happened for a long time. It's not happening today. Both distilleries are running at full tilt, but in the past, it's been 6 months on and off. Where did this happen? This happened at A, Highland Park in Scapa, B, Mannockmore in Glenlossie, or C, Springbank in Glenlyle. This happened between Highland Park and Scapa, between Mannockmore and Glenlossie, or between Springbank and Glengyle. Ah. Matt Horsham is saying every day is a day at school. Aye, absolutely, Matt. Greg's Whiskey is saying B, most likely, not C for sure. 7 out of 9 Kel Taylor for me, a lowly 3 out of 9 for Team Monkey. Absolutely, buddy. That's what I'm scoring it as well, as if you chose all C's. They might be full-time now, says James Morgan. Yep. Whiskey with Molly, 6 out of 9 gutted. Oh dear, Ben. Dogs have no uncle. Be by the process of elimination, which probably go wrong. Don't sweat it, Colin. Don't worry about it. Absolutely. Highland Park and Scapa famously did share a crew, but they were not running on a rota of 6 and 6 months. Springbank and Glengyle the same, more likely at 9 and 3. Manickmore and Glenlossie are butted up right next to each other on the exact same site, and they did run each distillery 6 months at a time. I believe they're now running full-time with 2 separate crews, both of them. So there we have it as we roll into the asshat question at the end. Is anyone holding on to a 9 out of 9, or have I pitched it just a little bit too close to Menno's level for another week of the vPub? Okay. I can't see a 9 out of 9. I can't see it. To get a 9 out of 10, then, it looks like a few of you are going to need the asshat at the end. Wow, it's been a tricky one. Here we go as we roll into it. I don't think it's an easy one either, if I'm honest. Question 10, the asshat question, deliberately awkward. How, according to the Malt Whisky Yearbook 2024, how many new distilleries have been built since 2005? About the same number as A, all distilleries and Speyside combined. B, all island distilleries combined. Or C, all Diageo and Chivas distilleries combined. Now, we've touched on some of these numbers tonight. We've touched on the number of island distilleries in very recent vPubs. Tonight, we've talked about how many Speyside distilleries there are, definitely. We've definitely talked about how many distilleries are owned by Diageo and Chivas Regal, but I don't know if that helps you, because what you're trying to do is come up with a number for the amount of new distilleries built since 2005 and then match it with one of the answers to A, B, and C. That's the deliberate awkwardness of the asshat question at the end. Good luck. It's a wee bit like throwing a dart, I know. Scots Only Roy, yes, Scottish Distilleries is the vPub, Greg. I do try and cast my net a wee bit further afield. You might remember I even had a French distillery, a French whiskey on last week. Unfortunately, that, what was it called? Domaine Haute Glace, wasn't it? Domaine Haute Glace. It's not ready yet, the one I have. That particular expression I had, the knowledge statement, indigene. It's not ready. It's just not ready. It's very young, very raw whiskey. It's not £55 worth, that's for sure. Okay, everyone, there are people all over the place on this one. I can tell you that Kyle Taylor has scored 4 tonight. My chimpanzee has also scored 4 tonight, which is down on the last 2 weeks of pass mark 5 and 5. He's down, but he matches Kyle Taylor's tonight. I can tell you that the amount of distilleries that have been built since 2005 is 44. All the Speyside distilleries, as I shared earlier, is 50. All the island distilleries combined is 31, 10 of which are on Islay alone. All Diageo distilleries in Chivas, as we covered earlier tonight, there's 30 from Diageo, 12 from Pernod Ricard Chivas Brothers. But we're looking to try and get as close to 44 as possible, which is the number of new distilleries built, according to the yearbook, since since 2005. So we're looking for C tonight, which gives Kyle his 4th C. That gives him 4 out of 10. I failed. I went for A. My chimpanzee went for A. But I know that we're not going to get anybody on a 10 out of 10 tonight. Let's not dwell on that. I hope we've still had fun regardless. Yes, me 7, monkey 3, superb. As long as we can't have the chimpanzees. We can't have the randomness of the multiple choice beating our knowledge that we accumulate as whiskey botherers, whiskey geeks, enthusiasts, barflies, all of that kind of thing. We can't play. It's good to see that we are doing well. Molasses Mike on a 9 out of 10. I think that might be the highest tonight. Pedro in Brazil, fantastic Pedro on a 9. Any others? Lots of 8s from Ben Dramhunter. Where's Roy on 8? Peathead, Frank on 9. Superb, Frank. Bob Weiser on an 8. Sid Martin on an 8. Sid, so good to bump into you at the Whiskey Club on Monday night, buddy. Thank you so much. It was great to get a wee handshake, raise a dram, and get a hug as well. I hope the rest of your week in Scotland has been brilliant, buddy. Fantastic stuff. It was fun. 8 for me, 4 for the ape. The ape, that's a good way to refer to it. Gene Kelly saying, I think we're often the apes, right? Gene Kelly saying, another outstanding vPub. The perfect lead in to the weekend, Gene. Let's raise a glass to that. I like the idea of that, a leading into the weekend. Cheers, buddy. Any 9s or tops, says Sugar Kitty. Fantastic. Oh, it's a delicious Deanston. Very, very rich, velvety even. Fantastic. Gino is saying, you have a great weekend, buddy. Cheers, Aqvavitae. Thank you so much, Gino Kumo. Wonderful to have you in tonight as well, you and your buddy Graham. Gino, maybe I'll see you in Scotland in the months ahead. Bob Weiser is saying, thank you for a great night, Roy. Very enjoyable as always. Thank you, Bob. It's incredible to me that it can be an enjoyable night, but I'll take it. I enjoy it. Road to Dram is saying, good night, Roy. Good night, Barflies. Thanks for another great vPub. Good night to you too. Road to Dram, Hellswood is saying, thanks for another chilled vPub. Good night, Roy. Good night, Barflies. Helen, I didn't even pick up a comment or anything from you tonight. I did spot that you were in earlier as we opened. Wonderful to have you, Helen. I hope you and Andy are doing well. Is he enjoying that book, laddie? Tell me. Jimmy Legg is saying, nice lead into the lock-in. I hope to welcome you all on. I've just got needing the final stamp of approval for a small childcare issue but it's heavily penciled in the lock-in for Sunday night. It would be wonderful if I could welcome all my patrons there for a no theme, very, very relaxed lock-in vPub session. Rick Johnson is saying, an action-packed vPub, Roy. Thanks for both me and the monkey. Thank you, Rick. Pedro Menez is saying, thanks for another great vPub. Cheers to all the barflies. And with that, I call it a day, says Peathead. Thanks always for organising, Aqvavitae, and to all of you. See you next time. Slanchiva. Peathead Frank in the Patreon comments said, I don't care what the topic is. I'll see you there regardless. Thank you, Frank. Cheers. Jimmy Legg is offering to babysit. That would be perfect. Can you imagine? And Alan Smith is saying it might not be a lock-in, but a tasting. Thanks for tonight, Alan. I'll get you on the next one, buddy, and I'll make sure it's available to patrons for catch up on the replay as well. Graham Fraser is saying, cheers as always, Roy. Great to see you. Great to welcome you in, Graham. Thank you for your participation. Thanks for everything you do. Thanks for your photos for the quiz too. Jimmy Legg is saying, never let me babysit. Daisy saying, thank you for another vPub, Roy. Good night, everyone. Till next time. Good night, Daisy, to you too. Wonderful stuff. With that, I'm going to raise this wee glass, this very bit drop, this last wee bit of the Deanston. I've got a wee bit of Mama Brook Laddie here saved. I've got a wee bit of the Macaloney's here saved as well. And I'll enjoy these after the event. But I'll raise this and I'll remind you all that you're very dearly loved. And look forward to seeing you back here for a Six Nations themed thing a week from tonight. Let's see if we can patch this together and make it work. Until then, you beautiful whiskey folk, dedicated barflies. Slanchiva. head over to dramface.com. Go. Vote. Vote. I tell you, vote.